Oh, hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, cool. Um, yeah, it's good to. So I'm already started streaming, so just to let you know.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
and yeah, sorry, where are you actually from?
I am from Illinois.
Ah, cool, cool. I'll just turn you up a bit.
Yep, middle of the U.S.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I had friends from Illinois when I went to my school. My school was kind of an international school, so
Oh, cool.
um, yeah, it was. I was very lucky with my schooling. Um, and I think this is one thing that I mean, in general, we a lot of people don't appreciate um, what they had in terms of schooling, right? Um, so I'm just messing around with my screen. Um, yeah, it should be an interesting interview. I've got some questions also just in general about life in Ukraine and how it's evolved and changed. And yeah, I'm hoping to get to Ukraine myself this year. Um, it should happen. So yeah, and you're involved in the uh, exactly how are you involved in DGG again? Can you just say?
I'm the relational organizing lead for DGG.
Okay, cool, cool. It's quite an honor then. And how long have you had that role for?
Uh, how long have I had that role for officially? Um, 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Okay,
Um, yeah, I basically was unofficially doing the role, and now we're formalizing it. Because I've been on several of the GGG teams. Um, the uh, the research team, I've been involved in pretty much every project we've had. Um, I've done some stuff with the events team. I've done fundraising team stuff. Um, yeah, I'm kind of all over the place.
okay, okay. Yeah, well,
And then I'm also Dylan's Track Ukraine admin.
okay. So there's a nice link between everyone. Yeah, I mean, that
Yeah,
interview
yeah.
was really an honor to do because there's so few journalists doing what Dylan does, um, and I mean, he's known, but he should be better known for what he does, in my opinion. I also like his use of the English language as a um, almost a poetic. I don't know, but well, yeah, poetic kind of a. He's very good at illustrating things with words, and I think a lot of journalists actually lack that. Um, so I appreciate his not only his take intellectually, but also the way in which he's able to describe his experiences. So um,
Yeah,
yeah, we need more people like that in the world.
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the midterms coming up. I mean, this is such an important thing. In fact, we need more track Ukraines, right, on other issues. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I can't say too much, but there's an unfortunate lack of the liberal side of that, and an increasing amount of the progressive. How do I want to put this? Myopic side of it. A little too trusting, a little too attacky, a little too, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I just was listening to Bernie Sanders today when I was working, and I, overall, I say I love Bernie Sanders, a bit hyperbolic, but I really appreciate
Mhm.
him. I have a lot of respect for him. He's a very genuine man. And I do think wealth inequality is a big problem, but frankly, I find billionaires more of a symptom than like. I mean, anyone would become a billionaire if they had the opportunity, frankly. And they're not all behaving in the same way, right? We know of the people with the worst case, but it's not so black and white, right?
I
And
don't
it's
know that anybody would become a billionaire. I think there's a lot of people who would choose not to. And certainly, I think there are people who would try to find ways to constantly be spending their money so that they don't remain a billionaire. You know what I
okay.
mean?
Fair enough. Not everybody, but I think quite a sizable number.
There's a large number of people who
Perhaps the
absolutely would. Yeah,
majority
for
of
sure.
people would, and simply because they haven't, they're not stigmatized for it from
Yeah.
left wing politics. And
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not excusing it. I don't think it's a good thing. I believe wealth inequality is, I don't know about underestimated. I think it's the solutions that are being put forward and the rate of change that's suggested by people much further left, and certainly myself, and I also don't like categorizing people like leftists or these kind of isms,
Yeah, I was
and
just gonna say, even
you
me
know.
saying progressive here is like I'm just trying to signal toward a particular type of progressive. The
Hmm.
people who market themselves very clearly as we're progressive, this and that and the other thing, and then you get to meet them behind the scenes. They seem like decent people, and
Hmm.
then you spend enough time with them, and you find out that their mindset is very much like I want to lob bombs from the outside, and when I get in, I don't really know what my plan is.
Yeah, it's fascinating because there's such an overlap with also how people deal with it in their own lives, right? It's easy to feel like the underdog and struggle in life, and then at some point you identify with the struggle, and in some respects, if you succeed, you're not used to that success and you don't even feel comfortable with it. And so you actually subconsciously go towards being the underdog, being the victim, being in a position where you don't actually succeed, um, so that you can make excuses, so that you can talk about other what ifs, right? And I think it also happens on a political level that movements have the same issue. And it's not always the initial intent. They believe they can really make the change, or we believe we can really make
Hmm.
the change. But they get used to a role and they become a protest party or protest movement, and then they start identifying with that. Um, and it's not, it's across the world, it's not just in Western democracies. And you wonder what happens actually if they succeed. How are they going to get used to that sense of identity? And
Yeah, I've actually worked with a number of campaigns this season, or this cycle, I guess. Because I came into politics again recently, with sort of a much more progressive and even socialist leaning mindset, um, and feeling like the system was so broken that we needed to like do a massive change,
mm,
etc. Um, but I understood that I was coming from a very uninformed perspective on that, right? But so I found some candidates who aligned with that, and I started working with them. And yeah, again, the more that I got to know things behind the scenes, the more it seemed like their only plan was once they got into government, they were going to continue lobbing bombs at their own party, and it was like I
and they're part
don't.
of the problem. They're a huge part of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
problem. As much as MAGA and Republicans and Tories in the UK, because especially, I mean, one thing the UK and US share is it's not proportional representation. So in political science, it's been studied ad infinitum. The systems always tend towards a two-party system. When there's more than
Mhm.
one party that's kind of involved, it becomes very unstable, but it doesn't tend to last. So if you fragment your side, you're fragmenting that side's ability to influence in the future, to have a party as a representative of that side. And so with
Yeah,
the
I
left,
do want to be clear. Sorry, I'm just going to interrupt because I don't know when Anna's going to hop in here. But I do want to be clear that also I think every part of the factionalism is a problem, right? I think the seniority establishment that is not nearly enough responsive is part of the problem.
mm,
I think that the people who are very critical and focused on a sense of like moral purity because they feel like there's very little they can do in the world, and so they want to focus on the thing that makes them the most angry or upset. I think those are also part of the problem. I think the people who are like, okay, I'm going to throw my hands up in the air, and politics is whatever. I think they're also part of the problem. I think people who are like, well, we have to moderate in advance are part of the problem. I think the people who are like, we need a revolution are part of the problem. Like I think everybody has a reasonable psychological perspective from where they're coming from.
mm-hmm.
And the real issue that makes everybody a problem is that we've lost the ability to trust in each other to any degree. And so like that's part of my big project. That's why I do the relational organizing. I brought the concept to digital ground game is because I think that is the only way that we begin to really uh, find that our differences are perhaps not so great, and that if we can have some degree of a common vision of the future, we can get energized again, we can work together again, and our politics will find themselves in a good position over time as we just talk with each other and sort of the bad stuff naturally rather than trying to argue with each other.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Well, there's argumentation in the sense of kind of academic argumentation and well mannered and looking for a shared
Hmm.
cause and improving. And there's another thing about recognizing that certainly generally on the left of politics, apart from some very extreme people, the ends are pretty much shared, right? There's a recognition of the importance of society, not just the individual. And a healthy society also lends itself to a healthy individual.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, there's a subset of people that are undemocratic, shall we say, and also have little respect for liberal values, right? And again, I think that's a cutoff point when you can't subscribe.
I don't think it's inherent though, right? Like I don't think that people inherently are anti-democratic, right? Or they're inherently anti-liberal. I think it's just that they've reached a psychological breaking point where they feel like nothing can change unless it's a massive change, and they have to force that change,
Well, yeah,
right? I
exactly. I
don't.
mean, they're being
Yeah.
consistent if they recognize to have the kind of changes at the rate at which they want it, because that's another
Right.
factor. It's not just about where you go, but how quickly you go there.
Right.
They're going to have to be undemocratic, and I respect them for that because, and I also can understand it. I'm very frustrated with our world in many ways and human
Hmm.
behavior. I'm frustrated with my own behavior, but it's sounding a bit arrogant here, but especially a lot of other people in terms of, especially on the environmental side of things, frankly. My background's in statistical physics. I can quite happily read climate change papers and have an understanding of the models that are being used. They're not far away from models that I work with, right? And I look at this stuff and it's like we are so, people talk about being realistic in terms of policy, and I agree with that because we don't think about human behavior. But it's also being realistic in terms of the climate. You know that
Right. Yeah.
we can't
Yeah.
wish
Yeah.
it to be something else and it can't become something else. So I'm very frustrated by that, and so it does tempt me to want an undemocratic solution, but I just don't believe there is a solution. It will be incredibly unstable and self destroy. And then the thing is, what people don't really get, and maybe in America, it's also, I mean, you've had a revolution that was relatively successful, right? Depends. I mean, I'm British, so for me, not so. But revolutions generally don't end up leading to what majority of people that initiate them wanted,
Want
right?
it.
I mean,
Yeah.
look at
Exactly.
Iran, right? Like most people who were revolting against the regime in '79. I mean, there's a hell of a lot of very far left people, and a lot of them were murdered by the Islamic extremists that came in afterwards, right?
Hmm.
So it's just one example. Or the Russian Revolution. I'm sure a lot of people, we know what happened there after the revolution. Even within that, the revolutionaries, only a subgroup of that survived. So, yeah.
So
Um,
yeah, so if I can just summarize where I think we both land, because Anna's coming in here and I don't want to take
e-
all the time away from
exactly,
her.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Uh, I think the place we're
Hi,
all
Anna.
landing here
Yeah.
is sorry, my brain exploded. Oh, I think the place we're all landing here is that psychological desperation and very strong emotion, which is being fed by a lot of sources we would prefer it not to be fed, results in chaos, and people don't realize it because they're just so desperate, right? And so my whole project is about making people feel less desperate,
Hmm.
more energized, that there is hope for the future, and that they can be a part of it.
Yeah, it's like a positive vision. I mean, Destiny had Barack Obama a speech of his up, a 10-minute speech about why you shouldn't be apathetic, and um, that I have a bit of a soft spot for Obama. I think he's a great guy, but one thing he has is that positive vision, and I
Hmm.
think it's the strength of the left. Like the right never have a positive vision; it's always negative, and so to overcome that, we have to have things can be better, and things are already quite good in some ways as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, Anna, sorry, we were discussing
Hello.
random political things.
Hello.
I don't see you though.
Okay,
Do you
I'll
see
put.
me?
I can see you. Yeah.
I can
Actually,
see you.
Okay,
Yes,
good.
my web camera is too old. It would be embarrassing to
Ah,
have
a
this on.
potato. Yeah, I used to have
Yes.
that one too. Yeah, but now I have a better one, I guess.
let's try.
Yeah.
Okay, no, it's. I think it's because I'm streaming and so my camera's being used by OBS and
Oh, I see.
I'm
Yeah.
quite a boomer with all this stuff. I'm afraid. So
Not as much as I am, so don't worry about that.
we can compete
Uh,
about that. Yeah.
yeah, boomer
Well, we all want the
competition.
focus to
Yes.
be on Anna anyway, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
um.
Yeah. Oh, I really like your
Okay.
this wallpaper behind you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, my friends call it an Azerbaijani carpet. It's not really, yeah, but you can find shit like that in Azerbaijani restaurants, I will say. But it's just yeah, it's just the wallpaper I got because I like this whole sort of like Kafkaz vibe, I guess.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful, yeah. I also there's the DDG Teddy just
Oh,
yeah
the guy,
yeah.
yeah, he's there. He's always there. It's where he lives, basically. Yeah, allocated over there. Yeah. I mean, by the way, I bought it myself, so
Okay.
it's not
No
that I
free.
got it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
You're
bought it.
not being
Yeah.
bribed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I ordered it and it was expensive, to be honest. Yeah. Also, it took ages to be
Yeah.
here, like
The
because
shipping.
American Postal Service is success. Like I don't know if you know, but it's true.
I actually remember posting postcards from Ukraine, and this was not far from Odessa, and had the most beautiful post office. Everything was really like wooden inside. It was, I think, quite old
Mm-hmm.
but very elegant looking. Maybe it was just a one-off. I don't know if post offices tend to be beautiful in Ukraine.
I mean, sometimes depends like on if it's like older parts in the city, it's like old buildings, then
Mm.
yeah. If it's like newer build, then they're like more utilitarian, modern sort of.
Mhm.
But they're not like rarely ugly, let's say. Go from normal to cute, typically, yeah.
Okay, cool, cool. Yeah, I mean, I have. So thank you so much for doing this interview, and yeah, just to let you
Mm,
know, I'm streaming it live right now.
sure.
But it's probably best for me to remember that rather than saying anything stupid. Uh, and I
Oh,
mean,
okay.
uh,
What are we worried about here?
uh,
Saying, yeah. How
um,
worried should I be?
I can always find anything to say. Yeah, so I mean, when I think about what to ask you, I must be honest that there's some questions um, that I mean, it's a you're in the middle of a war and living
Mm-hmm.
under this umbrella, and it's I mean, I guess you're only going to be able to really reflect on this when the war's over. But I mean, I imagine, for example, like everyday sounds like mopeds, for example, or like a lawnmower. Do any of these sounds
Yeah.
trigger
Yeah.
you?
Moped is pretty accurate. You mean if I actually hear a real, like a normal moped or like,
Well, yeah, you hear a moped and then you have an association with it. It sounds like a drone. Does it?
yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that anyone would say so. Yeah, I even had like this fucking. Oh, sorry, I don't know if I can swear. Can
That's
I?
fine.
Shouldn't. Yeah, so I
No.
had this in the morning today. Basically, I had the grass mowing thing. Like people like moaning, loaning, what's it called? They like
Lawnmower,
cut
yeah,
off the
yeah.
grass. Yeah, and I was like, "Wah!" And then I was like, oh no, it's fine.
I,
Yeah, so it's not just like moped sounds or anything like that. It's basically kind of like you can look at this as like an animal.
hmm.
People are like a little bit like animals, not in like derogatory sense, but you have like that sort of reaction. You hear like weird
Mhm.
sound and you're like, you know, like motions. Dogs do that and like animals do that. When they hear something, they don't really know what that is, and they're like, and then they're like calming down because they figure out what that is, or like they realize that it's not threatening and things like that, right? So people kind of are like that. So me and my mom today, for example, were like basically just eating and talking and stuff and drinking coffee and stuff, and then there was like this loud car noise.
Hmm.
Someone had, I guess it's like old car with like very loud sort of like blah, blah, blah sounds, and sometimes cars
Mhm.
make them. And she and I were both like, and then so you like get startled and then you like come down. So any sounds like that would be sort of like cause a little bit of a tension. Especially would be fireworks are absolutely unbearable. Like nobody can deal with that. But thankfully they're not allowed
Hmm.
right now during like curfew and shit like that. But I did see a lot of refugees from Ukraine who have been on like I don't know, some celebration squares in like in Europe or something like that, and there were fireworks and kids were like crying and covering their ears, dropping to the ground. And like adults were also very sort of spooked. So yeah, and thunder. Thunder is the worst. Thunder sounds the most like an missile strike comparatively.
Okay.
And
Huh.
yeah, we have this very funny thing on our app. that is saying what is flying towards us, like what type of like ammunition, what type of like threat it is, what type area of the city, right? And when it's thunder, it says like, no worries, it's just Zeus. Like, you know, yeah, messages like that, like don't shit your pants, it's Zeus, you know, like it's officials like public. It's not like it's a
Yeah.
it's a official, and they like meme like that, and everyone was like, screw you, Zeus.
I guess humor must be a massive part of dealing with the whole situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and are there a lot of is there a lot of stand-up comedy, or is there actually comedy nights, that kind of thing going on?
Yeah, I mean, we used to have like a lot of pretty famous like comedian people. It was like they participated mostly in like what is called like KVN. Basically, it's like a post-Soviet sort of stand-up. I don't know.
Okay.
Technically it is kind of like a stand-up show, but it was called different thing. And a lot of our like comedians were traveling back in the day when everything wasn't the way it is now. They would travel like to Moscow and perform there, you know, to do like tours all over like Ukraine, Russia, like Georgia, Armenia, whatever, right? You know, all the sort of like the whole sphere. It's not the same now, obviously,
Mhm.
but yeah, but I mean, Ukrainians are kind of like famously known to be like the most funny Eastern Europeans. I mean, so it's kind of like, I mean, by Western standards, we're still, I guess, the stoic Slav meme a little bit, but by like Eastern European standards, we're pretty cheerful and more like, I guess you could say, warm, like more humorous, more like we have a lot of our authors that are like traditional writers and things like that that basically exclusively wrote like humorous stuff, like satire or yeah, I don't know, like a bunch of funny things. So yeah, humor has always been like a thing, and dark humor especially is very common even before this whole thing.
So
You know,
Ukrainians
so.
are quite well equipped for dealing with the current situation in that regard. So,
I
um,
mean, I guess. I mean, people do say you're so resilient. So I don't know. perhaps, perhaps. I mean, I'd say we're doing pretty well considering, as far as like dealing with it goes and like being um, coping. I guess is the word I'm looking for. Then I would
mm,
say people do a pretty good job of it. I'd say.
yeah, I guess. So, how often a day are you shocked by something that isn't actually a drone or a missile? I mean, it
Well, I
happens
can't
every day, right?
say, but like, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say shocked is a strong word, okay, but a little bit like spooked for a couple of seconds, maybe.
Okay,
It's most so it's like a reaction, it's like a reflex more than anything, you know. You don't really think about it. It just, it's just a reflex,
okay.
basically.
You don't feel trauma from this later in the day when that's happened to you, or it's.
Trauma.
I mean,
No, 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 no. I mean, I wouldn't say so. No, it's just it's just a reflexive sort of thing. It's just an adaptation, if anything. I think. I don't think that's even bad. It's just good to be, properly reactive to things and just on alert. You have to be sort of, in a vigilant sort of state, right?
and
And
I mean,
yeah.
you have a lovely pet. Am I pronouncing her name correctly? Mocha.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's right there actually.
Okay.
But
I can
yeah,
interview her
but
as
she's
well.
yeah. I don't think she will say much except That's the only sound she makes. So,
That means poo.
so
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, not really. Like when you pet her and stuff, and she wants something, she's like I don't know.
I
They
mean,
just make that guttural sort of sound, like from the within sound. They don't make any other sounds pretty much as rabbits. Yeah.
I remember you mentioning, I think, about your friend's parrot, right? Was it the parrot?
Yeah, that was sad. It's basically like my friend's parrot heart attack, I guess you could say, like died instantly, basically because the shell. I think it was was it? Was it a drone or was it a missile? I think it was a ballistic. I think, but I'm not sure exactly what it was. But basically, a strike hit sort of like opposite of the street from where he lived,
Mm-hmm.
and the sound and the vibration was pretty big, and the parrot just died, and it was like a pet of like very very many decades old and could have lived quite a long time still, because they do live quite a long time. And Yeah, I was very sad. But birds are suffering pretty horribly, just like actual wild birds, not just, pets and stuff, because they're super reactive to all of that. They also, flying and stuff, obviously. And yeah, we have a lot of things like that. We actually had like birds that straight up, like in a horror movie, like dropping dead, like in mass from the sky and stuff like that. That was pretty horrible.
This is absolutely
Yeah.
horrific. I guess they're also affected by these sounds, these everyday sounds, if they hear them.
Yeah, they get affected by basically everything, by the actual explosions, by the things flying, also by the frequencies that are like disrupted, and there's a lot of like weird stuff that I'm not like a animal like expert or anything, but a biology a friend of ours who is like doing ecological stuff, and he's like works in the protective services for animals and stuff like that. He said that they are the way they fly gets disrupted, but like a bunch of like frequencies and things like that, and they sometimes just get hit themselves in like about like buildings and shit like that. So it's it's not just explosions that get them. Yeah.
I mean, there's also all the fiber optic cables. I mean, that must also be
Yeah,
affecting them.
that like stuff. They get stuck in nets a lot as well. The nets that cover the cities with the to prevent drones, basically, right? And they get stuck in that. A lot of animals get stuck. Land animals get hit, suffer really terribly from mines and like land explosives, things like that, because they step on them and all sorts of shit, really.
Yeah, that's it's
Uh,
horrific, and they're often forgotten, the animals in war, and it's another
yeah,
side
I mean,
of
we
innocent victims being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, we talk about it quite a bit, but nobody really like pays that much attention, to be honest. Like, for example, in Kakhovka Dam was happening, millions of animals died, and some irreparably, like, they went extinct, essentially, right? And the only animals who were like pretty successfully able to survive the Kakhovka Dam explosion and the flood were birds, because they flew away. And the rest of the animals were pretty much, almost all of them died. And there were a lot of rescue teams there trying to save elderly people stuck in the houses, and animals as well. They were evacuated like animals that they could, but to a certain extent, because they were under constant fire from Russia while they were evacuating and targeted as well, which was filmed and documented, by the way, by my friend Dylan Burns.
Okay.
He
Yeah.
posted, that he was there and he was like participating in like evacuation things and things like that. And his friend, actually, his journalist friend, I think from where he was, Germany or UK. He was like a foreign journalist who was also doing like rescue missions there. He got shot by Russians, and the shrapnel got stuck in like his pelvis, and he survived. But yeah, so yeah, people like under attacks on boats, like just trying to find people who needed help and trying to save them, and animals as well, but to only to a certain extent, basically.
And
Uh,
yeah,
yeah.
I've heard there are charities specifically focusing on helping pets, I think, who have been homeless.
hmm
Um, so people will
Yeah, there are a lot
care
of
about this,
people
they
who
can donate to this.
evacuate. Yeah, who evacuate wildlife and stuff like that, which is pretty good. But obviously there's still a lot of things. For example, we have like many species in Donbass area that are likely going extinct because of that was their only habitat, basically, right? And there was like this is a very cute animal, if you guys can look it up sometimes, I don't know, called перевязка. I don't know how it's called in English. Don't ask me. So it's a very, very cute animal, and it literally lives just in Donbass primarily. So it's like the only place where it lives. It was already rare, and now it's like basically like red book sort of animal that is
So
about to
can you
go
try and
extinct.
spell that roughly for me? Then I'll get it up on the screen.
I can send it to you if you want. If you want to see the cutie patootie, but yeah. Let me show you, because I will say my English is not bad, but when it comes to plants and animals, it's not great. I don't know how
Well,
all
I
of
also
that
don't know the
stuff.
names, so I mean, it's always a case of
Yeah,
how often you use a word. So.
yeah. It's just rarely you talk about trees with people. So that's kind of why I don't. on like animal types. And перевязка is in Russian, перегузня is in Ukrainian, but I will send you just basically the link to this thing. How it's called in English? I have no idea. Wormela? No way.
See, that's the thing. If we
That's
don't
how
have
it's
the
called?
species in the UK, even then there won't be a really known English word for it. Well, in America, of course.
You basically you need to type in Google like I don't know if it's pronounced that way. Wormela. It's like Vormela, like Wormela. I don't know.
Okay.
That's a
Yeah, marbled
it's a Latin name.
marbled polecat. Oh wow, it's super cute. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's the one I was talking about. Yeah, but this is like we actually had the little guys like that go into trenches with our dudes. So
They're
they
like a
sometimes
little.
feel.
They're like little stouts.
Yeah, they're
Uh,
very cute and like, but they're also like pretty vicious. They can like bite your ass pretty hard. Yeah.
I mean, I won't get too distracted by this. I can easily do so, but it looks like some kind of in the stout family.
Hmm. Yeah, that's the animal that is super endangered right now. And yeah, but the guys, like I said, film them in trenches quite a bit. So because sometimes they just hide in the trenches from like stuff, and just the guy would be like sitting in the trench basically, and I'll film him and hide in, and then this like Perehuznia jumps basically in his face, and he's like, "Oh, hello, okay," yeah, and it's just happens like that sometimes.
I mean, I guess a lot of the soldiers have pet dogs. I've heard, or they have pets.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of cats, dogs, like more common, I guess, than this guy. But there are. It's just that a lot of animals have been sort of abandoned because some people took their pets with them. A lot of people like tried their hardest. Like you have like actual people like with goats, cows, like chickens, all sorts of things evacuating. But a lot of people had to escape in conditions that weren't, really allowing to take anything, neither like their animals or their like items or like clothing or anything like that. So they just ran, and a lot of animals were abandoned in areas that are at the front line, and also occupation that was deoccupied, for example, right? And because of that, there are a lot of animals on the front, and a lot of soldiers sort of like feed them and like take them, and like basically they're like frontline pets, I guess.
Yeah. It must be good for the soldiers. Hopefully for the animals, they have that company. But
Yeah.
yeah.
My friend Devin Woodall from East West, he's like, we share basically like a media company now. He filmed with the Khazak, which is a police unit that is fighting at the front. Pretty interesting story in itself. We're like working on it right now to publish it and stuff. But they had like this very cute experience when they were like running away from drones, which isn't very cute, but like there was a dog, a German Shepherd, which is a classic police dog, and there was like I don't know, she or he, like the dog was like basically like, just crying and stuff, like running around, and this guy from Kazakh ran and picked up this huge like German Shepherd dog and like took it with them, like. And it was very cute. We have it like on film, and they kept the dog and stuff. So, there's a lot of stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that has a sweet ending at least. Yeah.
Yeah, he wants to do it like at the end of the film, basically, to show like something nice from this whole horrible thing, because they operate in something called the death zone, so it's not cute. And but the dog rescue was definitely cute.
So this is the documentary Kill Zone, I think it's
Yeah,
called.
no, this is the one we already did, and this one is like similar in type, but it's about specifically police fighting at the front. It's basically like regular policemen who ended up forming a unit and fighting as armed forces, which is
Okay,
unique.
can you just
Yeah, that's
what's the name of the documentary?
it's called Hijak, but in English, it's not, the documentary is not ready, but the unit is called Hijak. It's predator in English.
Okay.
And the documentary will be out at some point, but currently we're like in the process of editing and translating and all sorts of things.
And
But we have the footage.
just for those who don't know you, where will they be able to find this? On X?
We'll be able to find this on like my channel, or sorry, channel on our channel East West. Media, East West FM YouTube channel, and also Devin's media and mine on Twitter as well.
Okay, okay. So yeah, because sorry. And yeah. So what was Killzone about? That was this came out in February, I think.
Yeah, Killzone was about also about basically netting drones and stuff of that sort, but it's not with Hijak. It's not. It's just showing off like the whole how it is to leave and evacuate people from the kill zone, right? So it was about SOS East, I think they're called in English. It's a volunteer group that evacuates people from the most dangerous zones that are constantly under drone attacks. And this was like Devin like basically traveled with them and participated in evacuation process of with them, and also like with the SNS people, which are like security people, like rescuers, first responders, fire squads, fireman squads, stuff like that. So it was like more about that. And in the kill zone, essentially, the point is that if you go there without any equipment that is going to show where the drones are, if you don't have a car that is super duper like protected with armored vehicle essentially, then and you don't have any REB as we call them, like radio electronic combat battle, basically translates directly, but in English to make sense of it is just that you have frequencies that help you detect drones and go unnoticed essentially. So you will not be like immediately exploded. And as one of the guys who is like a worker in that SOS East rescue team, he says that if you don't have any of that, it's a one-way ticket. So you go there, you just die. And if you have it, then you have a chance to sort of like have a chance to protect people and get them out and help them get out of the zones they're stuck in, basically.
Okay, so this is a form of electronic warfare against the drones to protect yourself. And I mean, is this protective against all types of drones? They must be developing, the Russians must be developing some kind of resistance against this, or ways to get around this kind of warfare?
We can basically talk about this like quite a bit because of it's like a constant process. People should look at it at drone warfare in general, right? Not just from the civilian end, but from the military end, as a constant sort of like step by step. They make a step, basically throw at us something new, they invent something new, and next step of ours is to figure out how to deal with that.
So I was actually wondering, this brings us nicely onto, I mean, I don't know about you, but I tend to go off on tangents, or it's always interesting to go on tangents. But the chronology of, for example, like the first time you remember hearing a drone, can you remember that?
Oh damn, I don't remember the exact time. It wasn't really a thing in 22, and wasn't particularly a thing in 23, except in 23 I was buying drones of like DJI Mavic, which is nobody buys that now, but it wasn't the time. It was like a Chinese basically drones that I bought for soldiers, so they exclusively use those for scouting. So like basically have like infantry teams and shit like that, and they would use drones to scout. And nobody really used them as weaponry that much. So, and then that was probably the time when I started interacting with drones. But 24, I think, was the year when it really kicked off in the zone of like constant Shahid attacks, of using drones as doing like handing explosives of them and exploding shit. Like using drones as a proper weaponry is like 2004. I think 2024, sorry. And that was when they also started using them constantly, and it became sort of like a daily thing. And the capabilities of them became so strong that essentially being hit with a Shahed now is like equivalent of a missile, essentially, in explosives.
Right, but so, I mean, 2024, I think there was also not much air defense. I think a lot of them got through as well. Right.
No, I mean, most people just at the point didn't really know how to deal with them. Like I said, it's a step-by-step thing. Like something is developed. For example, we have the same thing with Cubs, which is like controlled aviation bombs. and we were like there was lobbed at us in like insane numbers, and from planes basically. Russia would use their fleet, their jet bombers, and they will fly them, and then they will like bomb and then get back to Russia, to the station, and just that's it, and bomb cities like that endlessly, and we couldn't stop at those bombs at all. We were just like basically catching them with our face, right? But
So,
now
yeah.
we can. So yeah, so it's a development process basically, figuring out
And you
how to
also
do it.
have these drone nets over the roads, right?
Yeah,
Especially near to the
but
front.
that's like it's you're right. That's closer to the front primarily. You like won't see like drone nets in like small in like regular cities somewhere in like in the center or like in the west or something like that. It's mostly frontline stuff.
But Kharkiv's
Uh,
quite near to the front. Do you have drone nets near to Kharkiv or?
yeah, I mean in like a region, yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And when did
And also,
when did the
yeah,
first drone nets come up? When did you start seeing these?
mostly I think it's like proper coverings in like end of 24 and 25. That was the time when like the big drone nets thing started going on. Basically, like on par with drones getting like becoming a regular thing.
Right.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Because I've seen pictures of people on racing bikes like doing everyday things
yeah.
underneath these nets. So people I guess it allows a little bit of a normal life because you'll survive, or there's a good chance you'll survive.
I mean, yeah, it's not like still, it's not like a bulletproof, it's not like 100%, but like, yeah, it's just sometimes you just need more stuff to allow people to just drive cars and, bicycles and like a regular activities. And that nets do help with that for sure. We also like moved from just machine gunning things from the cars. Basically, that's how we took down records, was like fire groups, ground fire groups. Oh, that's how they called it in English. Ground fire groups were like people just on the cars. You have like this machine gun installed, and you like just shooting around trying to take down drones. And they still do that. So it's not like we have people in Kharkiv right now who do that, and I even know them. Okay, but but that's a whole other thing. But they still do that. But like another step was like interceptors, which is relatively a new phenomenon, and now it's like basically in the process of fully transitioning, or like at least mostly transitioning to drone on drone violence, as we say. So it's just interceptor drones against the attacking drone. So it's like a Star Wars battle basically in the sky, robots against robots.
Yeah, I mean, except for the Russians that like to do this human safari.
Oh
Stuff
yeah,
from
I
Dylan
mean, yeah.
Burgess, this sounds absolutely horrific, and
Mhm.
they just aim for civilians. This is
Yeah,
quite
you can
a
hunt
common
people with
thing, right?
those, which they do. But in terms of like actual war,
Yeah.
it's about on our end, it's about interceptors, basically flying. You need to be up to speed. This is the most important thing, to catch up with that drone, and then you kind of get from behind it, and you like sort of grab it, and then detonate the drone, and it explodes the thing. That's kind of how it works in principle.
Okay.
And
And
mhm.
that's the newer interceptors, or were the original interceptors like this?
Yeah, that's basically how the technology ended up working overall. There are different models of like drones, but they're kind of like all work the same. Now we have another problem, unfortunately, which are on new types of drones called Zala. They are basically Russian, sort of like new tech, new-ish, and they have this like unfortunate thing that Russians themselves, by the way, it's not me calling them orcs, it's them. They they called it Oka Sauron, which is like Eye of Sauron.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like the thing, the camera, high quality camera that is attached at the rear of the drone. And they now see basically from their ass of the drone, so to speak. So they now see the interceptors coming in, and it currently gives a lot of trouble to that strategy of like getting them from behind. And yeah. People need to come up with something new to deal with it, I guess, again. But yeah, that's they start like doing this maneuvering actions, going side to side, and like it's quite difficult to actually detonate them now. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that. For example, we had Molnia drones that were terrorizing us for quite some time, and we absolutely didn't know what to do with them. So the reason why was because they basically drones kind of like show the signal that shows their altitude, how it's called,
Altitude.
the
Yeah.
altitude, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's and that drone they made sort of like reset the signal that it always showed 0. So no, it's actual altitude, but 0. And our guys had major trouble trying to understand where the hell is it. And they were like mostly invisible. And then our boys figured out how to see them. And now they can take them down pretty effectively. Like a lot of eastern parts are now all like in winds of Molnia drones. Because they're so frequently getting taken down. I think Devin has one at home, and so do I. Actually, I don't know where it is. The wind from Molnia.
So this, they drop ammonia, the ammonia gas. Is that how they work?
Molnia is the name of the drone.
Ah, okay. Sorry, I was
yeah.
imagining they were dropping ammonia gas or some kind of
Molnia. Molnia is means lightning in English.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a type of a drone.
Yeah, and again so I'm just looking at this chronology of 24 it starts to become a daily occurrence, but how fast did they seem in 2024, for example? They were quite slow moving, I think, at that time.
Kind of, yeah. There was no such thing as like, for example, like there was mostly like FPV stuff. People talked about like FPV drones and stuff like that. There was like little kamikaze drones, and now they're like incredibly fast in comparison to what it was. So, for example, like there's even such a thing. Unfortunate, I hate those jet shaheds. So we call them reactivni shahedi, but it's like essentially jet in English, jet drones. Those are so extraordinary fast that it's like absolutely. It sounds like a jet plane, which I only heard in 22. Like at the beginning of the war, because I had this Russian plane jet flying like 5 times per day over my house.
Wow,
because he was trying to take down a TV station. And he was like flying past my house, and the entire house would just drop like to the floor every time it flies. It wasn't fun. Yeah, but he then got cooked, that guy. So based. But anyway, point is that they sound kind of like that. So they sound like a smallish plane, basically. And yeah, and they're extremely fast, and they get us with those for sure.
Okay, which year did, so that's more recent, but when do you remember the first time you heard a rocket Shahid?
I think first time was recent in Kharkiv.
Okay.
I don't think they were used, and it was like in 26 in this year.
Okay, 'cause it's been around for a year or two. I know they were producing them, so it's interesting to see
but
when
mostly,
they start producing them compared to when they actually end up being used.
it also depends. Like for example, they use them on the front, but they might not use them on a city or like a particular city or something like that. So it kind of depends. Like some things are like regular in one place and highly irregular in another place. For example, getting like FPV a drone on the front is not irregular whatsoever. It's a normal daily shit. But having a FPV fly in the centers of the city, that's very rare. So you don't really get attacked in the city by FPVs.
Okay, but
So,
in Kherson they do this though, I believe.
in Kherson they do that, yeah, because it's like basically just they're on the other side essentially, of the river. So it's not a long flight for them to get to the parts of Kherson region that aren't occupied right now.
Okay, and to be clear, I mean it's a matter of range as opposed to targets. So Kherson is within range, and so they can then basically go on their human safari.
And proximity is like matters here, obviously, because for example, it even mattered even pre-drone era. For example, like when I was back to 22, right, when we were mostly hit by artillery in Kharkiv, right. And the reason why was because they were very close. They attacked the city with like the actual soldiers. We just pushed them away from the city and they couldn't occupy it. But they were close. They were like standing right, at the outskirts of the city. And then they were trying to, they were moved a little bit, but they were bombing, like just throwing artillery like nonstop at the city. And flattening the whole residential area called Pivnichna Saltivka. And that was where most people in Kharkiv actually lived. So it was like 500,000 people population was there. And most of them had to move from there, obviously. And it's like sort of like a ghost town now. But yeah, so that was what they did. And then we have counteroffensives, and we moved them far away enough that they could no longer get us with artillery. and it's almost entirely stopped
Okay.
happening.
Okay. So Kherson is safe from artillery, but it's more that it's now drones that the biggest problem.
I mean, I'm talking about Kharkiv now. Kherson isn't really
Sorry.
safe
Okay.
from.
Yeah.
Kherson isn't really safe from anything. Sorry to
Exactly.
say.
So I was surprised still.
Yeah, no. It's not like they get everything. Honestly, like
Yeah.
artillery, drones. It's just that artillery became sort of like not obsolete by any means. There's still like artillery exchange on the front all the time, obviously, right? But it's every year it becomes more of a drone. You know, it's like less of anything else and mostly drones. But in Kharkiv it's kind of like similar as well, in the sense that you move them far away enough and then they can't get you with things. But then they come up with things they can get you with, which was COBs. I talked about them before already, controlled aviation bombs, right? So we got saved from the artillery. Then we got sort of like saved from a constant S-300 missiles, which is they shot from Belgorod at Kharkiv. But then we got COBs that we couldn't do anything about because the aviation, just was flying, throwing, getting back like daily. And the only way to stop that would be to attack the planes. So which we did, with the Operation Spiderweb later, but in other operations as well. But we were also at the time begging basically for weapons to do long-range strikes, specifically to stop their aviation bases from doing this. But we were prohibited, primarily by the United States at the time, to do that and to get long-range missiles or to use them. So that was a bit annoying.
And Operation Spiderweb was against these Tupolev. I can't remember the number, but they're these large old Soviet bombers, right? And,
this is primarily what they use.
Okay.
Also MiG planes, which they also use still till this day, but mostly to bomb the front line.
I think they destroyed like 20% of these large bombers in one go in Operation Spiderweb. Some crazy number.
Yeah. Overall, I think it's about like 40 something we have done in this since this. But they also don't really use planes anywhere near as much because it's like so expensive, and you get like drones and then like hook up that plane and it's quite inefficient, like in terms of like using extremely expensive jets and things like that, when like a little a swarm of like drone duders can take that down.
Yes, it's economics in the end, and I mean that's kind of the direction of the war is about the economics of war. But just on the point about Operation Spiderweb, because that was I think quite deep into Russia. It must have involved so many agents in Russia for that to have taken place, because they released these drones to destroy these planes deep within Russia. So there must have been so many people. There must be so much going on in Russia. There must be so many people that are actually working with Ukraine, and I think that kind of reflects on the complete lack of belief, really, underneath that's going on in Russia. I mean, we don't hear about the opposition or people that are against the government.
I wouldn't say so. Just having like your spies and people who work in you in the country doesn't really reflect how the population feels, if I'm honestly with you. Population feels exactly the same it felt, like not much changed, like most people don't care and they are conformist, or they just apathetic and they just don't care. That's it, pretty much. They just live their lives without bothering about anything. And there are a lot of people who are extremely like Russian supremacist, Russist, as we call them, like Russian fascists, basically, right? And they are like super duper like Ukraine, big hate towards us, obviously, like Ukrainian pigs getting killed, yay, right? It's like you read Telegram channels like that on the daily, right? But it's like obviously not everyone is so rabid. It's not even like the majority of people. Most people are just sort of like complicit or just pretend like they're political and don't care. But if you ask those apolitical Russians who Crimea belongs to, well, they become real political real fast, talking about my relatives right now in Russia. So it's just quite a sad state of affairs. If anything, recent events might actually move them a little bit. us attacking Moscow, for example, and successfully like destroying quite a bit of their like air defense systems and things like that, and that shook them up big time. Like entire internet was filled with crying Russians and shaken Russians and all sorts of Russians recording videos about how they are never been so scared in their entire life, and oh my god, and all that, right? What is happening? How they can reach us? Or like, why are they doing this? That's my favorite. I love those. And yeah, they have a lot of like this stuff, and we Ukrainians had a very nice day that day. Let's put it that way.
It's been a few days.
Everyone watched.
It's been
Yeah,
a few
everyone
days
watched
now.
those videos.
I think it's happened
Yeah.
a couple of days. I think there was
Multiple times, yeah,
yeah,
but
yeah.
the first time was, you know, very precious, so to speak, because like it happened when it happens the first time, and after the whole parade thing, and then they attack us with the biggest attack ever, basically more than 1,400 drones attacked us. It was like absolutely crazy day. It was, or rather not day, it was like 24 plus hours. And after that, you know, to respond like this was uplifted some spirits, let's put it that way. And I'm very, 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 very pro this. Obviously, we didn't have the means to do it really. So now that we have the means to do it, which are our means, by the way, things developed here, we need to do it a lot more, because that's how you essentially take the war over there. Because for all this time, people lived with zero consequences for anything they did, and when what we were exploding was mostly, you know, refineries, oil industry, things like that, that were like way back, like deep into Russia, or has like so far away that nobody in Moscow, like Peterburg, or like, you know, Omsk or whatever, like don't care about that whatsoever. So yeah, and they also don't care because they're not the one fighting. Essentially, you rarely would find a Moscovian citizen, citizen on the front line. Okay, it's mostly gonna be some guy from some Syktyvkar or some shit, like very like far away east, or like in a very impoverished, marginalized people who are like doing it for money essentially, because they see it as their ticket out of poverty mostly, you know. And
Yeah, same like
not to say that I, you know, I feel sympathetic, you know. But I'm just saying that, you know, to explain the situation, they do it purposefully, the regime. They're not trying to recruit bougie ass rich privileged people from Moscow, like St. Petersburg or anything like that. It's just not happening, because they specifically want to avoid those people seeing the bad body bags, you know, and the all that stuff. It's like they're supposed to be isolated, right? And it's kind of difficult to keep them isolated when you, well, do, as we say, добрые дроны, you know, nice drones, nice drones attacks. It's kind of like difficult to not see that, okay? So as much as like, have you seen, guys, like how much Putin and state media in Russia try to underplay the attack, try to like minimize it, to like censor, silence it, and people were still putting out the videos, like screeching about it, because you can't really put that sort of like drone cat in the bag, I think, which is good.
Exactly.
For the regime,
There's
it's
no
bad.
propaganda that really covers over what they're doing, and I mean, at least the translated, I guess it just clips that people have made, these Muscovites.
Hmm.
I mean, it's still kind of shocking to see them ask silly questions like, "Why would Ukraine do this?" or
Oh,
why
I
are
can
you
explain
here?
that.
And it makes me wonder, like, what level of propaganda must be going on for them to not understand why Ukraine would do this?
I can talk about this. You need to stop me because I can do it for hours, okay? But point is this, that a lot of my Western friends ask this, and like a lot of pro-Ukraine people, like Ukraine supporters even, they like say like, how fucking R-worded are they? Okay, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but like how, let's say, and incredibly stupid. Let's use
Hmm.
this, okay? How incredibly stupid are they? And I'm trying to explain to people all the time that they're not. You know, it's not me again. It's not me defending Russians. No, no, no. But it's just me saying, like, people like, are they genetically like that? Are they stupid? I'm like, no, guys, it has nothing to do with any of that. Like, they're not such thing as genetically stupid nation or like genetically stupid people. Like, toss that shit, okay? Point is that there are just two things. One, sphere they exist in informational, right? So like propaganda, TV, whatever, right? And the second is most important. It's actually Russian ideology, mentality, and the way they see the world. So for them, it's it's exactly explains with one thing. You can talk with literally any Moscow guy right now who made those videos, or like a woman, and they will tell you this. In other words, right? It's basically they can do things, but things cannot be done to them. So they
It's just
live
like
in a complete. Yeah, yeah. Sorry.
well, it's just like MAGA in the United States, right?
Yes,
They, yeah,
exactly. That's the same thing. That's why I'm saying it's not like Russian exclusive or anything. Like it's
yeah,
just yeah, it's just basically like when you be like MAGA people be like like, oh, they left did this so we can do this, right? And then they're
yeah.
like imagining things and like never happens, but they have the right to do things, but the left doesn't have the right to do things, right? It's the
Hmm.
exact same logic. Basically, it's like this: what is allowed to Jupiter isn't allowed to the ox, right?
Hmm.
Phrase.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how exactly it's called in English, but that's it basically. They are the Jupiter, they are the god essentially, right? The superior being, and we are cows, okay? We're cattle, so we are not allowed to do to them what they do to us. So
Right.
that's kind of like a very important thing to understand about that sort of like mentality. And I'm not saying that that's the only thing. Of course, there's like propaganda, there's informational space. A lot of people who are deluded, for example, into thinking they're actually are the good guys somehow. Like there's
Hmm.
people like that, obviously, who believe in the fact that they, fighting the righteous fight against ban the right Nazis or whatever the hell, right? But that's kind of stale by now, to be honest. Even like Russian propaganda dropped that shit because it's like it's been years, okay? Like
Hmm.
it doesn't literally work that way anymore. So they are like now relying now more not to demonizing Ukrainians, but to just silencing the whole thing altogether. So that's like
Hmm.
more of their like newish agenda. Not to say like we are like saving the Russian speakers. Like how many times do you need to destroy Russian speaking cities and towns to the ground? Even a Russian in Russia is like like are
Yeah,
we
yeah, yeah,
really
yeah.
so it's kind of like doesn't really work that way anymore. So they moved on from that like line. It's not pushed anywhere near as hard as it was in 22, 23, even like 2014 when they initially did the invasion to Donbass and all of that occupation of Crimea and stuff, right? It's just they moved to just getting it under the carpet, essentially, right? So, yeah,
Yeah.
but I also don't think they're stupid, don't think they're deluded. Most of them are not. Of course, there are like babushkas that, I don't know, watch TV and that's all they know. Yeah, they be like,
Hmm.
yes, Ukrainian Nazis, go Stalin, that'd be like the vibe. But like most younger people are not grannies, okay? They have
Hmm.
access to internet still. They use it with like VPN mostly, because Russia. But they do use it. They're in the Telegram channels. Until recently, it wasn't even like blocked. Now it's like a little bit more complicated for them to go. But they still do it. They still bypass the things, and they have people they chat with here. Most of us have relatives, friends, former, but the ones that were we still speak to. People speak to those people sometimes, and all sorts of things. They know what's happening. They watch footage. They can find them like in all sorts of places, and they're not as stupid as people like paint them to be. Most people just either don't care or they support it to a certain extent, either to a big extent or to a like small extent, or they just pretend that nothing's going on, which is like most people, to be for real.
Yeah,
uh,
this conversation was supposed to be largely about like weapons and technology and all that sort of thing. But
oh, sorry.
if I could, no,
Yeah.
I'm saying this because I'm out of line here. I want to ask an uncomfortable question about that specific topic, right? Of
Hmm.
like the friends and the family. So, um, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that I heard you say that you have family that's still in
Yeah.
Russia.
Yeah,
And
most of my family.
how is it like to, you know, I guess interact with that situation, knowing with them knowing how serious what's happening is, you know?
Okay, so I'm my mom is partially Russian, and most of her, not most, all of her family lives in either Sochi in Russia or Moscow in Russia.
Hmm.
So that's one thing, and my father's line is in Greece mostly. So that's
Okay.
kind of high. I also have like relatives in Germany and all sorts of places, but like
Mhm.
mostly it's Greece and Russia. So kind of like Do you know this like meme? It's a neat thing, you don't. That's kind of how how I deal with it. Like a neat thing about this is I don't interact with them. Like that's literally like the keys to success. You just don't speak
Gotcha.
with any of them. But my mom still does. I mean, I understand because it's she grew up with the people and stuff, so it's like she's more connected to them than I am, and.
Mhm.
See, she somewhat like keeps in touch, but just to I just gonna bring one example that will explain it all without going into details. So
Okay.
when my father was killed in 22 by artillery, and my mom was also there, and she survived, and in the house, I mean, and then she after it was a day after it, I think, or 2 days after it, something like that. So very just happened situation, right?
Mhm.
And she got a call from Sochi, from Russia, from her aunt,
Mhm.
and who they were very close. She also that aunt, by the way, came here to Kharkiv multiple times. I also know her, and she was because her brother lived here, and he also is buried here and stuff. But anyway, that's a whole other story. So she has been here. She has been in my father's house multiple times. We like to her to do like shashlik and stuff, kebab, basically like hang out in the yard and stuff. So she knows who we are. She knows how the city is. She knows like everything about it. She has been multiple times.
Mhm.
And her first thing she asks, first thing, not how are you, not like, oh my God, that's terrible. Like, I don't even know what to say, blah, 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 typical stuff. No, she
Mhm.
asked, was there a NATO base there? It's a residential house.
So she
Like
wasn't
Yeah.
even
small two
she
floors.
wasn't even being fed the propaganda. She was looking for the propaganda to
Yes.
make it easier for
Yes.
her to reduce any dissonance in her mind.
Yes, just
Yeah.
imagine how like screwed up all of that is in like nationwide. Not like
Mm.
Yeah.
like just multiply that shit on like other people basically.
And then
Yeah.
it's a kind of a collective d- um, delusion because you see this happening among groups. I won't mention what other online groups at the moment are doing this to themselves, but people can convince themselves that they're right if they're roughly believing in the same delusion. They can strengthen the delusion among them. So it's not just the state doing this; it's people talking among themselves in Russia, reinforcing this delusion they have of being morally superior and having the right to
Yeah,
do this, and all these. And then I guess the propaganda comes in terms of aiding them to do this by giving them the lies about NATO or protecting Russians, which is completely delusional. And so
they
they
protected my
just feed a
father, all
little bit.
right. You know, he
Mhm.
was a Russian speaker. He didn't even know a word in Ukraine. So in Ukrainian, I mean, so protected
I'm
him,
sorry
all
for
right.
your loss. I know it's maybe a few
Yeah,
years ago, but it's still it can't be easy for you, especially when the war is still going on.
yeah, but like it's been way more people died since then, so it's just is what is at this point. But yeah, it's just anyway, yeah, it's just you're right about that. I think it's a very good way to see the how like actual like propaganda works in practice because it isn't just like a evil megaphone, yapping basically, and people are like like
Mhm.
zombies. That's not how it works like in real life, and they reinforce it because it's also foundational to understand this. Like if you are like for example a Russian person who is willing to dismantle all of this and see the truth, it's an incredibly difficult painful process. So you have
Mhm.
to then um, put the foundations out of from all of your beliefs, like going back to like Russian Empire, World War II, Soviet Union, you have to like dismantle this whole idea that they were always the good guys, always the saviors, always the like the benevolent ones. And there's like this very prominent myth in Russia that everyone hates them for no reason. Like they would with a straight face actually say that sometimes, and it's just you have to dismantle generations of ideas and beliefs that were basically just transferred to you like from grandparents, parents, that
Mm.
sort of thing,
Yeah.
right? So it's
It
not
sounds a
just
lot.
yeah,
Sorry. I was gonna say it
yeah,
sounds a
that
lot like my journey out of fundamentalist Christianity.
kind of,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of similar overlap there.
I mean, it's a very strong belief at the end
Yeah.
of the day, right? So it might be religious, it might be non-religious, like as people say that the communism became the new religion, right? So that's kind of true. Like Stalinism became new religion. Instead of like a god, you now had this like glorious father of the nation, whatever the hell, right? The figure that was like the chief of the nation, like everyone had their, instead of like a Jesus on the wall, you now have a Stalin on the wall or some shit like that. You know, it's like fundamental. It's not that different because it's
Yeah.
just a very rigid beliefs and a very strong belief that to get out of it you need to dismantle not only your own like foundational beliefs but also you'll be destroying your social circle, you'll be destroying your relationships with family. Like most Russians that I personally know who aren't nuts and who support, for example, Ukraine, or they feel like incredible despair, and they're like distraught about what is happening, right? Most of them are completely isolated. So they had to like basically absolutely, they either hide their, you know, their positions to be able to live in Russia, for example, normally, right? Or if they don't hide it, then they're absolutely like it's a catastrophic fallout with everyone, you
Yeah.
know, basically. And not
Ostracized. Yeah.
everyone, yeah, not everyone is willing to take that, even if they kind of like know inside themselves that that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So
I mean, for those who haven't
yeah.
been to former Soviet countries, there's quite a few war memorials around, but the years aren't from 1939 to 45. It's always from 1941 to 1945. So of course you learn, or in the Soviet times learned, that the war basically started in 41 because they wanted to brush aside what happened between 39 and
Yeah,
41,
that's how they
right?
still do it.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
exactly.
how it was done when I was a kid, actually. Like when we had like May 9 parades and shit like that, right? And it was like, and I even remember as a kid, I was like, you know, quite an inquisitive sort of child. And I was like, hey, didn't it start before this? And everyone was like, you know, you know, it's just yeah, because you don't want to talk about, you know, Pact of Molotov-Ribbentrop. You don't want to how chummy they were with Nazis, the whole plans of sphere of influence, who gets what in Europe. You know, they don't want to talk about the joint attack on Poland, and you know, which led then to all the nice death camps for, you know, Jews and all of that shit, right? Because of the what happened there, and and of course the fact that they then went to attack those spheres of influence that were magically on that document, you know, by occupying the Baltics, you know, and then trying to occupy Finland, and well, go finish. You know, didn't go work out. Inspirational as shit, that story, but yeah, they ended up only getting 10% of the, you know, of Finland because of the Winter War, and the Finns kicked their ass absolutely insanely. I don't know how they did it. Maybe how we're doing it now, actually.
What I was about
Maybe
to
that's
say,
how.
I mean, it
Yeah,
does
yeah,
look like possibly for good and for bad the outcome of this war. I mean, Finland lost land to the
maybe.
Russians, but they nevertheless didn't lose their pride. Um,
Or their sovereignty, or like an
exactly.
independence as a country, yeah, which is probably the most important thing, because like obviously, you know, ended up other people that did occupy after World War II ended up under the same boot, essentially, right? They added a lot of more stuff there, for example, Germany, you know, and all that, obviously, right? Because they're like just, you know, there's this meme, I don't know if you guys ever saw this, it's like people like oh, Germans are like putting guns on them, and people in Eastern Europe are like, you know, hands up, you know, and then there's like Soviet Union people running in, and they're like chase out the Germans, which is like the narrative leftists in the West like to stop on this. And then everyone's like, yay! And then the Soviets pull the guns on them, and they're like, again, you know, ends up. That's kind of like it's funny, but it's actually what happened. Like, you know, it's just one occupation has been shifted with other occupation.
Yeah,
And
my
yeah.
ex-partner, her family from East Germany, and it's just crazy to think that her grandmother lived under democracy part one. Well, it probably must have lived under Imperial Germany. Democracy part one, then fascism, Nazis, and then communism and a form of fascism. And her family were Christians, so I mean, it wasn't quite so bad in East Germany as some communist countries. Like people didn't end up in prison often for being a little bit against the system, but then they'd be interrogated like once a week, or you know, they'd always be spied on, and the Stasi would have information on these people about even about things like how their marriage is, or if they had an argument. Everything was collected. So then there would
Yeah.
be, it would be, and they'd even play mind games. I heard about them going into people's houses and moving things around to get people to think that they're going mad, basically. Things like this,
Hmm.
which is
Yeah.
just as bad, actually, isn't it? But and so she had to live under this, and then she lived under democracy finally before passing away. So
That's a common common experience, over here. It's just not common for like Western people, I guess, but like in a sense, that's a pretty normal thing. I had this like anecdote, like a joke, basically, that humorous thing that people say. There was like this one guy he was asked like where he was. Um, did he spend his whole life, where and what was happening? He's like, I was born in Romania. I was then I was like in Austro-Hungary. Yeah, I grew up in Austro-Hungarian Empire. Then I was like, I then got married in like this place, and then then the communists. And was like had first my kid under the German like occupation, and then like ended up in communism in Soviet Union, and everyone was like, oh, you must have traveled a lot. And he's like, no, I never left Mukachevo.
Yeah, yeah.
this is like basically like it's a city in Ukraine, Mukachevo. And it's just kind of how everyone, like, there was like legitimately people who in the time of their lives have been under like 20,000 occupations and like different regimes and all sorts of shit. So it's not like, that weird technically.
I mean, I was also in Transnistria, and I've forgotten the other name that they have for it, basically Republic of Moldova, even though it's not really. And they think that they're still the Soviet Union. They celebrated a
those
100-year
guys.
anniversary. I was there.
Let's not talk about them. I feel
Okay,
bad when I speak about those guys. It's just it's literally a zoo with
yeah,
people in it.
yeah,
It's kind of like depressing.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's they're completely deluded about where
Poor
they fit in
lads.
the world. But
Yeah.
yeah, they
It's
have.
also like scary, to be honest with you, because I experienced like a fraction of this as well. For example, there was like this kid from a family, basically, right, from Donbass who escaped, and we sort of like provided them shelter and stuff, so they lived in our house for a year. This family. And they were incredibly nice, like lovely people. We had, quite a great relationship with them. And there was like this elderly gentleman, right, his wife, and their daughter and her child, their grandson. So we come around, we played with that guy, like little kid. Me and my sister were like, hanging out with him and stuff, and the family. And then their daughter make an absolutely idiotic decision to return to occupied Donbass with her son, and then which the parents couldn't talk her out of it, and she then ended up returning there. And next time when I saw this kid, I didn't see him, but like when I heard from this kid, right? And his grandma called us, and she was like, couple years has passed, guys. He was in school now in the occupied Donbass, so they're like brainwashing them hardcore, right? And he was here. He like lived in Kharkiv. We played like with him. He was like, he liked us a lot, right? It was like he had a bunch of kids here who are friends of his, right? And the grandma calls us and she's crying because she's saying, I told him that we should go visit the girls and the family, in Kharkiv that we lived with. And he said, I don't want to go there, band rights. And it's just there you go. It's like, and kids grow up like that, right? They go to school. They're like kids right now, right, that have been so long in occupation that they might as well think that we are the baddies, right? You have kids from Mariupol who have been abducted or like, transferred to Russia, that now being told that the people who killed their parents are the good guys. And it's
tragic. Yeah, I mean, this is the other thing. I mean, I can understand why you wouldn't want to think about Transnistria, because I mean they had their counter-revolution in 1992, right? So if I can do maths quickly, I mean it's just over 30 years, right? That they've been.
Yeah,
in
it's
this...
like it's whole people grew up there, by that time. So
and if you go there, I mean, I met people in Moldova proper, like the actual Moldova now. And I had people holding my hands crying when I told them I was going to Transnistria, because they were from there, but they don't live there anymore for obvious reasons, because they didn't support the new regime.
Yeah.
And so all the people that do live there now, I didn't meet anybody that didn't support the regime, and openly, quite confidently, like in small villages where no one was listening, they just genuinely believed in Transnistria now.
Yeah.
And this is the problem, that this has been for over 30 years like this, and I don't know how it can really be properly integrated back into Moldova. And this is the real risk and the real reason, well, one of the many reasons to support Ukraine right now, because you can't just leave territory like this and then get it back in 30 years' time. And I guess that's,
Yeah, well,
yeah.
unless you do it absolutely unhinged like Azerbaijan does. Like that they got Nagorno-Karabakh back from Armenia,
Mm.
despite it's been like literally ages by now that that conflict has been happening. But Azerbaijan, they don't really care about like rules of engagement or like Geneva Conventions or like a Roman Statute or whatever the hell. They're like, yeah, no, you get out, you're screwed, So yeah, so it's like if you like don't like just take the territory, toss everyone out of it, and then you just replace the people there with your own people. Unless you do that, which isn't like obviously the best way to approach things, then you'll be like, what do you do even? How do you integrate people that are absolutely not?
Yeah,
So
exactly. And
yeah, there
it's
you go.
even if you can, and so it's all the more reason for the urgency of supporting Ukraine right now, I think, because it's not a simple process to reverse.
Yeah, sure. That kid now is like later teens, I think,
Mhm.
and I can't. That was after him. It was that conversation was in 2017. So it was before the full scale invasion. It was just after the occupation of Donbass
Mhm.
in 2014, right? And I don't even want to know what he thinks now. Okay. In fact, I don't even want to know at all, because that kid might actually be dead. He might be, I don't know. Yeah, many people got conscripted from
Exactly.
Donbass, and yeah, and thrown to the meat grinder. So yeah, I don't even know, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one thing an adult choosing to believe in propaganda, but with a child, they are more innocent in this regards and more sensitive,
Yeah.
and it's horrific the images you see of just normal Russian schools and how they're basically doing Hitler Youth training with their children to propagandize
Yep.
them, and that is really a long term issue. Um, I mean, I
Mm.
mean, for us in the West that are naive and comfortable and lucky at the moment, who see this drone footage, is there anything else that I'm missing here in terms of understanding what it's like for civilians to live under that cloud?
You mean like as far as like propaganda goes, or like
No, I mean for,
all
for you,
like?
for you, living in
Oh, you mean
Kharkiv.
for us?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can talk about this like for ages. I don't know. Like I've been like on multiple things, interviews and stuff like that through the years now, and landed on some even weird ass things like CNN and like Piers Morgan and all sorts of shit, right? And at the end of the day, it's like sort of like a new reality. I don't know. That's the broadest way I can explain it, but I think it like kind of captures the thing. It's just people are quite adaptable creatures, like cockroaches a little bit, and they are like adapt to things and quite resiliently and fast in terms of like how reality changes. What was absolutely crazy like yesterday is no longer crazy today, and you just sort of like shake it off, like Taylor Swift song. So yeah, you just shake it off because like it happens and you have to like move on and live with it. Like it's just becomes daily life. It becomes like I don't know, like for example, like just to explain it like in the most basic like trivial sort of way. Like you like for example have this night attack, right? You can't sleep, obviously. I don't even remember last time I slept like a normal person. And you go to like bed, and then there's like boom bomb explosions, right? And you're like, what is going on? You grab your phone, you look at the phone, at the app, what it says. If it says like it's something like 20-30 minutes away from you, you're like whatevs, if it says it's like close and it's getting to your particular area where you live, right, you're like fine, you're holding your ass like to the corridor basically, right, to be between a couple of walls and not close to the windows, right. And then you wake up your relatives because they are bastards who can slip through anything. And you like wake them up, and you like friends and stuff, everyone in the house, right, and you like wake up. It's like actually the worst person in the world is Dylan on that. Dylan Burns, like we had a ballistic strike 10 minutes away from where I live. It's like the whole building is like, you know? And he slept. So I'm like on his door, like open it up, and I'm like, Dylan, and he's like, what is happening? He didn't care. Okay, Chad, Giga Chad. So I like hold his sleepy ass to the corridor and like, you sit here. It was just like this basically. And yeah, it's the same thing I do with like a lot of people because I can't really sleep. I like have pretty terrible insomnia, so I can like check what is happening and then be like this vigilant guy. And then I woke people up. We go to the corridor. We sit through the explosions. Cursing out Russia, basically typical sort of like attitude. And then when they finally get off our case, right? My very polite way of saying F off. And then they are like, we go back to bed, I guess. And some people, some bastards again, fall to sleep like nothing happened. And some are like, lying there in bed, just looking at the ceiling and thinking, is this shit my life, right? And then it's like morning and you have to go to work and stuff. So people start get up and do themselves like triple, double, triple espressos, I don't know, like tea of the incredible strength to just start somehow wake up after daily nights like that, right? And then you go to work. Maybe on your way you get another explosion, and you will have to hide in a, I don't know, metro station, or sometimes you get caught in a bus or like something like that, which is very shit. I don't like to be in a car like in a bus when explosions are happening. Kind of feel like you're in a tin can of death. But then you just kind of like go to work and then you return and then you eat food and then you call everyone when explosions happen and asking like, are you okay? Have you exploded? What's up? That sort of thing. And then the guy be like, my friend, for example, be like, nah, it's fine. Just the window got cracked again. Bastards, just replaced it last week, And it's like kind of like that. And then you go to sleep and it's all over again, you know.
Did you have
There you go.
insomnia before 2022, or is this insomnia developed during the war?
I kind of always had like sleep problems in the realms of normality. So like sleep problems like regular people have, like sleep problems, I don't know, like in school or like something like that. But then it got significantly like to the I could be in this book, how it's called, Guinness Book of Records by now of not sleeping. So yeah, it wasn't that bad. Yeah.
Do you know anybody else suffering with like
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
insomnia?
It's
Yeah.
incredibly common. Like I've been to doctors and stuff like that, and they'd be like, "Oh, another one," you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's like my favorite conversation with the doctor was when they checked like a bunch of, I didn't feel particularly fabulous, so I checked a bunch of things about, because it's been like 5 days with no sleep, and I was like, oh damn, I need to some horse-sized industrial pills to like knock me out or something. Like, so I went and I'm like, give me pills, like I don't care. And they were like, okay, let's do checkups and stuff like that. And the doctor is like, has like silly little smile, and he's like, you have very high levels of cortisol. Have you tried relaxing? And I'm like, you absolute bastard. And he's like laughing, and we laughed like about it. And he's like, yeah, I know. It's a meme I do with all my patients. And I'm like, okay. And you find it funny every time, huh? And he's like, yeah. So yeah, that was just the kind, because if you live in Kharkiv, you have the levels of cortisol that would actually like drop dead some people. Okay, so it's just you have so much like adrenaline and all that stuff that just keeps you going, I guess. Yeah, that's it really. That's how we live in Kharkiv, guys.
And I mean, this makes it clear, right? Of like when people will, I've had conversations trying to educate some people, and I'm, I know very little bits of things just because Dylan pulled me in on, helping out with Track Ukraine and everything. But like I never followed the war or anything, but um, so I can kind of still understand the perspective of people who are like, so why do we want to continue the fighting by giving weapons or whatever? And I'm like, okay, but like there's no way this stops, right? With the
That's
situation,
yeah.
yeah, with the situation the way that it is, there's no way this stops unless Ukraine can fight Russia back enough to where Russia's like, okay, this is absolutely not worth our time, our energy. This is going to end very badly for us, right? The same way that like Republicans, MAGA would never stop attacking Democrats, no matter how much Democrats were conciliatory, lost power, etc. Right? There's the only way to stop this is to have consequences.
I will just make a huge ass disclaimer that me explaining all of that was not to say that I want peace by any cost, because nobody
Yeah.
wants the peace by any cost. In fact,
Right.
that's the opposite. Actually, that was probably my most epic moment. Actually, when I was invited on CNN again by Anderson Cooper after my father was killed, and since me and Anderson Cooper spoke quite a bit about my father and the fact that we got separated and all of that, right? And his team reached out to me because they saw the news on like ITV News, which is like a British news station, whatever, right? And they were like, would you like to come on and like speak about this? And I was like, I was a little bit of a zombie at the time, to be honest. Like after it just happened, and I was like, yes. And I was like, absolutely like, disassociated a little bit. But then he asked me like basically a question that you just brought up, like despite that happening, like how do you feel about like the war? And I was like, I feel exactly the same, more than ever. Like, give us weapons, help us
Yeah.
fight, and it's kind of like that. It's the things happening are just it's two things. Stopping war is not stopping occupation now. It's not
Mhm.
stopping the brainwashing, abduction of children. It doesn't stop torture and imprisonment of people in occupation. It doesn't stop any of that. So it's not peace. It's just that it's like sort of like hidden under the carpet, and
Right. Yeah.
yeah, you don't get any justice or any help for those people whatsoever. You have places like Mariupol that will never find out what exactly how many the mass graves they even like are actually redigging people, and like where they throwing them now nobody knows, right? And you have all of that. For example, how do you give Kherson to Russia, for example, after they have been hunted by drones daily, like in a human safari? How do you do that for peace? No, you don't do that. Like I would kill myself. Sorry, if I was a Kherson person from Kherson, and my country was like, well, for peace, you go,
Yeah.
guys. you know,
Yeah.
it's impossible to comprehend. So yeah,
Right.
this is just a very silly sort of unbombed opinion
Mhm.
that people think that the peace by any means is good. It's not. Like people want justice, sure, but peace by any means, no. If you ask people in Ukraine, and people did do that, they took polls and stuff like that with people,
Mhm.
and they were like, do you want peace? And everyone was like basically say, well, yeah, of course, like everyone wants the war to stop and to like return to sort of like semi-normal life somehow. And I don't know, but if you ask them, do you want peace if we just capitulate, like nobody says yes. Okay, and it's because those are not the same, and those like terms
Exactly.
for
Yeah.
propaganda
Yeah.
purposes are being substituted all the time, because people
Hmm.
like, see, Ukrainians want peace, and we're like, of course we want peace. We want peace the most. It's us who get it like bombed every day, right? But yeah, but not by the price of just capitulation. And then you have Russia that will pull a Chechnya on us. Like basically they signed after World War One. After First Chechen War didn't go as they wanted it, they signed a peace deal, which you can wipe your ass with Russian documents they signed. They
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
never.
Yeah.
So yeah, so yeah, they signed that, and then Chechnya was absolutely destroyed, and they didn't have any money or any means to actually rebuild themselves properly, while Russia obviously had much more
Mhm.
resources, everything. So they put their war machine on a full industrial scale, as they did now,
Mhm.
right, with us. And then they just attacked them again and absolutely obliterated those people.
And
Like
to be clear,
Rosny
this
was
this
one of.
was this was the beginning of Putin's presidency, right? When he went in a second
Yeah.
time, and he was actually prime minister in the first time. So I think he was
Mm-hmm.
involved in both of those wars in Chechnya. So
Yeah.
I do feel like a bit of an idiot, frankly, for underestimating just how evil, frankly, Putin has been and is, and just not learning from history with regards to what was happening.
Most
Also,
people didn't
Georgia in
know, to be
2008
honest.
as well.
Yeah,
Um,
but most people didn't care or didn't know like anything about like Moldova, Georgia, Chechnya, what they did in Syria.
Chechnya was
Nobody
on the
cared.
television quite a lot in the West. I mean,
It's Chechnya at the end of the day. Like seriously, like I
Did
mean, it's if people barely care about like things that are much more impactful, prominent, and closer to the Europe, for example, like we are, right? But when they care about like Muslim guys from some weird Chechen people in
sure,
Russia,
sure,
like
but
most people,
but selfishly
yeah.
in Western Europe, I mean, this has not been good for the economy of Europe, right?
Yeah,
Sure, but yeah. So I see more and more parallels to like the MAGA movement and the Republicans. The more that we talk about this, right? Because like, part of the reason that progressives are so angry at a lot of Democrats is because they feel like the Democrats keep getting fooled over and over
Sorry,
again.
second.
Yep.
Air raid. Let me check what's happening. You can talk. Obviously, I'm sorry that I interrupted you.
No.
No, I can hear the
Uh,
sirens actually. Yeah.
Oh, you can.
I thought I
I
could.
Ah,
Or maybe it's just I was expecting to hear them maybe, but
Yeah.
um
yeah, it's not really close to my place, so it's not super loud, but you can hear
no,
it.
I can
Yeah.
hear it. Yeah, for sure, sure.
Okay. No, it's in the city, but not near me. So
I mean,
let's
this brings
go.
me. I mean, this is a good distraction onto a question I actually meant to ask you about this app. I mean, I've looked in the site for when um, Ukraine has been under fire. How reliable is this app? Are these sites for?
Oh, ours is very good. We mocked, as youngsters say these days, we mocked Kiev and like other cities in terms of like accuracy. Our app is like absolutely bomb.com. Like they're basically like right in 90%, 99% of like cases. Rarely they ever wrong about the direction of what they're flying, how many. Like it's a very, very, very good in terms of like information.
And that must give you. I mean, some peace of mind. I don't want to kind of overstate it, but I mean to know that you
Yeah,
can
it's
rely on
like
it.
it's pretty good in terms of like just managing your day basically, right? So for example, right now my app says that there is a BPLA, which is drone, right? Unarmed vehicle, unmanned vehicle, I think it's called, right, in English. And
Yep.
it says, for example, what type it is, and then it says the place where it's flying now currently and where it going. And it flies through Tsirkuni right now, which is like a village close to Kharkiv. So by that, I can already tell where it goes, which probably this part of the town, and I know that I'm not like in an immediate sort of threat, but other people who are, obviously can also tell. And yeah, it's pretty practical in terms of like life became like more sort of feels a little bit controlled since that those apps started working
And
because at the big
so
yeah.
who's
Mhm.
funding the apps? How is it funded?
There's this one guy actually who is in the channel called TLK, like TLK. He's the one who is doing this, and people just donate money to him.
Okay, so
So
it's something that people in the West who are a bit annoyed at our governments for not helping enough could donate money to this.
yeah, I
It's
mean he gets like so much stuff, and like there's another group called Radar, which is also good, and they get supported by us, because we care. Obviously, they help us, so we support them, and they support us, and it's sort of like a kind of how volunteer process works in Ukraine as well. So
yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah.
sorry, yeah.
I think Reason was asking if there's a way for like people in the United States to donate.
I
Yeah,
mean
I'm talking
they
about
they
viewers right now, for
they
example.
they raise
Yeah.
on like Telegram, to be honest. So I'm not sure like how
Okay.
good that would be. Also, to be honest, they're like swimming in dough. Okay.
Okay,
Like
which is good.
we're
It's better
making
better
that
that way around.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, we're throwing so much money at them because they help us so much. So it's not like they're struggling by any means. They
Okay. So
actually
we
are
just need to
insane. Yeah, in terms of money
yeah.
raising. Yeah, so that's good.
So we just need to fund you more.
I mean, I wouldn't say no, but yeah, I haven't been doing much fundraising recently. I've been in a bit of a funk, but I did one just recently, and it was like pretty
Yeah.
successful. Like in a 24 hours time closed.
So
So
for the people who are listening, save up your money, and then we'll drop it all on Anna the next time she asks for it.
thank you. By the way, can you finish what you were talking about, like with the MAGA stuff? Because
Oh,
I interrupted you rudely with my air raids.
oh no, not at all.
Yeah.
With your life safety, you so rudely interrupted me.
Yep. Very
um,
rude.
yeah. So no, I was just saying that like it's I just see the parallels of that like MAGA is not going to stop, and the Democrats, anytime that you give a little bit, they're just going to keep overstepping, right? There's no end to it. And so the people,
We got
who are
it.
like,
Sorry.
yeah,
We
the
got
people who
took down that guy who
great,
was flying. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah. So the It's just like the people who are like, okay, well, I don't know enough about politics. Both sides are kind of this
Oh
and that or
yeah,
whatever.
they do that. I
You know?
noticed that MAGA do that shit a lot. Yeah, and many people who are like sort of centrist do that, which is like the
Mhm.
the whatever the undecided that are actually MAGA all the time. You know,
Yeah. Well,
with
yeah,
Russia,
yeah,
it's same thing. Yeah, with like apolitical Russian, and you're like, hmm. You
yeah,
basically do
yeah,
the exact same thing with your centrist people because at the
yeah.
times like this you cannot be undecided. You know,
Right.
it's not true. Like nobody is like apolitical. There's if you don't live on an island, I don't know, somewhere, then you're political because you engage with the society.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
and in that sense, of course, like yeah, MAGAs are terribly Russian pilled. I would say, like they give
Hmm.
everyone here like the fucking flashbacks. You know, they have this like very Russia coded, as people say. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
because of the way that they sort of operate in terms of like propaganda and in terms of like the unfortunate like this sort of like authoritarian oligarch aesthetic that they go in
Hmm.
for, particularly Trump, you know, and his family. And yeah, it's just pretty impressive. Which we talked about that how terrible it is that killed children, right? Like you know, basically brainwashed by Russia. But you will
Hmm.
have that. You will have like kids that will be like, oh, the election was stolen, you know,
Yeah,
or you will
yeah.
have kids like that, and you will have to deal with that now because
It's
that's kind
deeper.
of like the way. Yeah.
It's
Hmm.
deeper when they're propagandized as children. That's almost impossible to get rid of. I mean, it's the same in Nazi Germany and Austria. I mean, people don't realize this that don't have contact with it, but in the 40s and 50s, I mean, the people that were devout to the Nazis, especially those who had been grown up into it, they still believed all the same stuff. They just went quiet. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and so it's the same thing today in Russia, but it's of course the same thing in with MAGA Americans and with the Farage types in the UK. You're seeing a lot of children turn up to these rallies now that they're taking their children with them as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
And this is another layer of seriousness for us. Um,
Yeah. So
Yeah.
this whole
And
idea of
you
like, you know, Ukraine's problems are Ukraine's problems. No, we're all in this together.
Yeah, and you also have the issue that isn't really, you know, it gets worse, I guess, because of the whole social media stuff, right? And it's not,
Hmm.
it's quite unique. It's a new tool, right, for propaganda of that sort to spread. And you have actually Russians now fully taken advantage of that. You know, there have been alternative media people like Tim Pools or Timur Pulov, as we call him, right? He was like basically, you know, getting money from Russia directly to basically
Yeah.
do Russian propaganda, right? And this
Hmm.
legendary video of him banging the the table with his fist and like Ukraine is the number one enemy of whatever the West or something. You know, I don't remember, United States. He said like something like that, and I don't remember seeing that clip, and I'm like, on the Russian payroll. But I had no proof
Yeah.
at the time,
mhm.
obviously, right? But then proof pops up. And you don't want to be like this conspiratorial loon, okay? You don't want to
Hmm.
come off as unhinged. So I don't really talk about it as much. But because people like give you the side eye, they're like, oh, you see Russia everywhere. And I'm like, because they kind of are, you know, they kind of do
Yeah.
be sponsoring like the good chunk of far right in Europe. And they sponsor the politicians, their campaigns, whether it's like Le Pen, or it's like AFD thing in Germany, right, or whatever it is, like Brexit. I will bet my entire rabbit on this. Okay, that it's you know it's all of this is just they're very effective in that. They're much more
Hmm.
effective in their hybrid warfare than they are in the regular type of
Exactly.
warfare,
Yeah.
right?
That's where they're actually potentially winning, scarily enough.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
would say so.
because it's
Yeah.
not even really spoken about anyway to the degree that the urgency that we need to discuss this. And the fact is, I mean, I actually wrote an article last year for the Pragmatic Papers about just how deeply linked Putin is with the far right in Europe.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because he was based in Dresden, and this specific office was known for its links with the far right organizations in West Germany. Um, and they were funding the far right consciously with the intention of breaking up democracies. This was in the 70s and the 80s that we know. And these misinformation campaigns, these active measures, right? They've got a long history. And only once
Yeah.
did the Soviets ever admit to it, and that was Gorbachev about the aid conspiracy theory, which they started in a newspaper in India. So this is how they did it. They find a little newspaper somewhere. to start the process off, like a seed. They got an East German scientist to write some pseudo paper as to why AIDS came from the CIA and from the US. That was then reported in this paper, and that's how they started this. And Gorbachev admitted to that. That was the only case. So we know that that this was no longer a theory about what they were up to. We know they're up to this stuff, and there's plenty of other evidence around it. And so the fact that Putin was himself directly linked with this and linked with far right funding in the 80s is like, this is not okay. It's not proven beyond reasonable doubt, but to say this is a coincidence it would be just shockingly naive.
Where there's smoke, it's a little interesting. I actually have to drop off. I have to do something for Ground Game. If can I give a plug real quick for that?
Please. I mean, sorry. Go for it. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you go to discord.gg/digitalgroundgame, that's digital ground game. We are running a fundraiser right now where you don't have to give any money. All you have to do is join up. We have this thing called RallyBot. I will, for the next hour, be hosting a big session of getting everybody to use this. Basically, you just let people, or you let Rally know people that you know in your network. It's not adding them to any sort of system. It's just identifying sort of like who people from our Discord group know. Broadly speaking, it's very anonymous for network mapping, and they're paying us to do this. Every person that signs up, we get $5 for. And there's no data selling. We have a full privacy policy and everything else that I'll be talking about a lot today. So if you would like to help out just for today only, if you come over to the Discord and you just even look up a couple people you know, it will give us money and we would be happy about that. But yep, I'll see you guys later. Thank you so much for talking, and I'll see you later, Anna.
Yeah, thanks for your time. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Bye.
Yeah, I'm also gonna be like dropping off relatively soon, but
I mean, I have two other questions that I would like to ask. I mean, there's many questions, but two I think kind of poignant. The first one is about grieving. I mean, you spoke about grieving of your own father, but I mean, is it not? Do you think people are finding a space to grieve? I mean, there must be a lot of people losing loved ones and who are seriously injured and such like, and I can't imagine there is much space really for this emotional space.
Kind of difficult to explain, I guess. It's just that, I mean, very much depends on the person, obviously, right, and their own experience. So it's kind of hard to speak like in generals here for everyone. And I spoke with people who at the strike sites, right, who were waiting for their like family members to be dig up or like found. And we spoke with people who lost their children. We spoke with people who lost their loved ones, their spouses, whatever, right, and their parents and stuff like that. I personally lost my father, a person I loved. We weren't really like sort of still, we weren't yet together, but we were getting there. And I also lost a bunch of friends, right, and so it's kind of like, everyone has that experience by now, pretty much, in the East especially. Of Ukraine, right, on southeast basically, right, and if you like speak with people, they at the very least know someone who died, or it was like maybe like a friend, colleague, or whatever, right, or they have like a multiple people that were killed, right, that they in family members, like loved ones or something like that. So as it becomes common and sort of like a shared I guess experience, and it's become sort of like mundane, I guess you could say, so it's not treated as something I don't know, like I mean, it sounds a little callous, but it doesn't, it's not really a big tragedy, quote unquote, anymore, right? It was at the beginning. I remember like very clearly when you see footage of someone like being killed for the first time. Like I had this, like, actually it wasn't footage I saw, but it's in Kharkiv, there was like this strike of artillery that killed a bunch of people in line for food during first week of siege of Kharkiv. And I was just running around with my sister trying to get water, drinkable water for people, and under artillery basically in the winter, right? And there was like this, just another yard essentially from us. There was people were in line getting food, and they have like a bunch of bags with like potatoes and like bread and stuff, and all of them were like dead on the snow. with all the potatoes, carrots, bread everywhere, and like just blood and people on the snow, right? And it was like one of the first experiences that, you know, was absolutely like insane. Like it was mind blasted. I was like shocked, and you know, it was just a very difficult thing to process. If you see something like that now, it's not that you don't feel anything, but it's just very numb and very like you process it very fast and you move on.
But do you not think it
So
actually might be simply delayed for after the war?
I mean, you could say that a lot of people, like I said before, like running on like crazy adrenaline, you know, stuff like that, and they don't really process things, and it all kind of gets like shoved into the box, and then the box, if it box gets opened, you know, things might happen. I don't know, it might be bad. So that it's like a Pandora box of sorts, right? And people just have to, I don't know, just have to think about things in terms of like practicality, right? So you have to be like, here's my code, his password to my account, you know, I gave to my family if I die so they can access it, and everyone does that, right? And you have, here's my like stuff, I like, here's the stuff like from a computer, and like here's the stuff that, you know, you can even sometimes say like give this to that person or something, you know. And you have to like be practical about it, and you also have to be able to put yourself, sorry, triggering, I know, right wing language, but like pull yourself by the bootstraps, but unironically you have to you have to do that, because for example when my father died, right, I had to be there for my mother who survived that, and I had to be there for my family who lost the job. All everyone wasn't working at the time, right? Now they're back to it, but you know, my sister, my mother, like, you know, a lot of my friends lost their jobs, didn't have any income, and I had to like do things like work, help them, get products for them, get food for them, you know, get the basics for them done. And there wasn't really time for me to mop about and do some silly shit, you know, and just you have to like sort of, you know, shake it off and then do it, you know, do the things that needs to be done, because you have to be there for people, and you have to like sort of take this responsibility. And it's not nobody has, not nobody that, but most people are very poor, you know, so they didn't really have a any safety net, you know, to drop back to, because like it's a very western thing to have like money on your account. Okay, like most people don't have it, they just live day to day, salary to salary, nobody has any like money saved anywhere. Like you have like maybe some epic stash under your pillow or some shit, I don't know, like a pillow bank, right? But it's just not something that most people have. And there's so many people like in need, and you have to move on. Some people find it incredibly difficult, for example, like especially when it comes to children. I would say like mothers especially losing children would be probably like one of the most difficult things to move from. And they receive like psychological help from professionals, which is now quite available, obviously, and quite in use because of the whole thing that is happening, right? And yeah, but there's yeah, it's some people stash it away, some people like try to deal with it, but ultimately it's just depends on your situation and the person. For example, we have like this recent strike, right, that killed two girls, sisters in Kiev, and their father died at the front. He volunteered to go, went to serve, and died on the front. And then they were living there with the mother, with his wife, and now the mother survived. So she lost her husband, and then she lost two daughters. So I'm not particularly sure, if I'm honest with you, how does one live or like move on, and in that situation. So it kind of depends, basically, is what I'm saying.
And I guess some people, everyone has a different limit as to what they can still cope with. You say they have to pull your bootstraps and up and get on with things, but I mean that's also a reflection of your resilience as a person. There must be people who simply they break. Frankly, I mean, do you know anybody
Sure,
like
but
this?
like I'm not gonna be like hyping myself up here, because I think that's a lot of people like that. I'm not like particularly unique in that sense. I think Ukrainians are quite good at actually pulling themselves up by the bootstraps as a nation, because like most of the history has been so shit, you know. Has been so shit and so difficult, and the lives of people lived even before the war were already quite difficult. And people are like sort of like prepared, I guess, a little bit because of the shittiness of the whole thing. And yeah, it's not the same. Obviously, war is war; it's a completely different thing. But it's you are not like particularly cushioned or like spoiled or anything like that. And then you can really, when you're less privileged, I guess is what I'm saying, then it's a little easier to adapt to the situations that are pretty terrible. But some people, of course, can't move. Like I said, like this woman, I can't imagine honestly how she's gonna be moving on from that, right? I have a friend of mine who is in fire squad in Kharkiv. He's Turgut. I actually did an airstrike interview with him about his work as a rescuer, first responder, and he encountered many people like that, right? Who, for example, there was a woman he digged out of the rubble and he rescued her, and but her son was killed. Her like little child was killed in that explosion, and she was like in absolute state of shock, and she couldn't like really she refused to basically believe that he was dead for multiple weeks. And her husband was like trying to help her and stuff, and but it was like, yeah, it takes a while obviously, but I think people are much quicker to actually you know uh start living again than people would imagine in the West in particular. Yeah.
I mean, this past winter was the hardest winter I think for
By
Ukrainians, right?
far, yeah. Hmm.
And it wasn't. It was also that the weather was some of the coldest, I think.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was even by our standards pretty cold. Like extreme weather lasted quite some time, multiple months.
But do you not think Ukrainians were pushed near a limit in terms of what they're able to accept?
I guess no. Like everyone survived that shitty winter except those who didn't. I guess the people who froze up to death. So people are very good. Actually, when I was in Kiev, for example, when the situation was probably one of the worst there in the city, and you'd be surprised how like weirdly cheerful everyone was, considering how unbearably awful that was. Like it's just I stayed there for like a couple of days during the premiere of our movie, of our documentary, and I was like having the worst time. Like it's just in minus 17 like Celsius, and I had like -3 at home where I was staying. It was absolutely horrible. Like you couldn't shower, you couldn't like warm yourself up, you couldn't cook anything. It was absolutely debilitating. Like you just lay down in like all your full clothing, like your hat, your like gloves, everything, and you just stash like water bottles of like hot water in your bed, trying to like warm yourself up, and it's absolutely horrendous. And but you then wake up, or rather, if you're able to even sleep in those conditions, and then the curfew is done, and you like go to, I don't know, it's like 7 in the morning or some stuff, and you're like, oh yeah, okay, I'm out of here, okay, because outside is actually warmer, and ironically, because you move, you know. And I was like, I'm getting like out, basically. I running outside, and then I like go to the closest shop, like coffee shop or something, and they have like generators there, and like maybe like coffee or like tea or something like warm to warm you up, and you like stay there, and everyone is like kind of sitting together, trying to warm up, and everyone was like, hey, how it's going, and everyone is like trying to like then go to work and stuff, and like it was difficult for sure, but the people like dealing it the best they could. I am worried on occasion, to be honest with you. Like I am worried that how far people are gonna be able to push themselves, and like will there be a break?
Exactly.
Will
Yeah.
there Yeah, will there be like a moment when they're like maybe like just giving up is better, but it hasn't occurred yet. And no matter how the plank gets like it gets like higher and higher, and people still don't give up, and they still hold on to it. And like one thing that really keeps people grounded, and me in particular, and from people I heard, is that they think about, for example, about the boys on the front, for example. So we are like holding up here because like at least we have like apartments and like coffee and like some things to warm up, but they're in the -17 at the trenches at the front, right? So you have to think about things like that you are still, even as shit as it is, you still have it better than people who are defending us right now. And that like keeps perspective on, I think, for many people.
And I guess for the soldiers at the front, it's also warms their hearts to know they're being thought of. So
Yeah,
it's
of course.
important, yeah, to be respected. But
Yeah, one of the things that keeps them going is that the people really, show the care, and they a volunteer effort in Ukraine has been incredible, and how much people, civilian people, helping the soldiers at the front is quite remarkable by all standards. So, it's just obviously it keeps the thing functioning, sort of like it's like a sort of like a relationship like that. They defend us, we defend them. It's kind of like works like that, I guess.
and for everything that you, I mean, I have many other questions, but I do have two more quick questions.
Mhm.
For everything, well, one's a quick one, the other one's a bit longer, maybe. For everything that you know about the developments, you were talking at the beginning about this toing and throwing of drone technology and drone development.
Mhm.
For the trajectory that you see with regards to this, I mean, one aspect is Ukrainians' defense, but does anything worry about that trajectory pushing Ukrainians too far in terms of maybe the Russians being able to produce far more drones and overcoming air defense? And for another winter, for example, can you imagine a situation where it is just simply too much?
Um, hmm. Well, on one end, like, I will tell you the joke that people say, like, we can survive a nuke, I think, at this point. Like, that's the ultimate escalation. People are like, that might be like a bit too much. But like, other
Okay.
than that, it's just people are sort of like prepared for all sorts of shit. We will have to prepare for the winter better this time, because it will be just as shit, if not shittier. So everyone knows that, and everyone is like more prepared now. Yeah, it's something to just think about in terms of like overwhelming us with drones. Yeah, that's of course it's a possibility, but we also are quickly developing, and we're catching up with them as much as we can. Recent events, I think, demonstrated that we can also now attack them now in a very sort of like pretty effective way. And it's a question of money, and it's a question of economy, right? Because people like Trump, for example, proceed to throw the life buoy like save to Russia all the time, right? They got like how many 10 billion or some shit from that Iran debacle, and it's like all of that is going to be invested in like murdering us. So thanks, very nice. But like it's just that of course it's difficult morally, because you have like this battle with the actual Russian invasion, and their quest to basically erase us, right, as a nation. And also you have this like allies in the West in particular, right, from the European Union or like America or whatever, and they also either don't commit in terms of like how much we need, or they straight up like help out the Russia with all the sanctions shit and like oil and all of that. And then it's just quite difficult, of course, because it's not just Russia. People need to remember they have allies with Iran, they are North Korea, they're allies, China, although they pretend like they not, but they are. It's just a lot of things that we have to deal with, and it sometimes feels like you're this shield against the world, basically. And it's difficult to deal with. I can't lie, of course. It's like sometimes it's morally really difficult to deal with it, and you do feel like um, keeping up the sort of, how to say this without sounding too epic, um, keeping up the belief is difficult. That's probably the most difficult part. You have to like continue to believe that the impossible is possible, and that that you can pull through, like, and you can do it. And each year that belief, of course, is strained, and especially with something like Trump coming into power, which was a very big blow, obviously, to us in terms of like a cutting of aid from United States pretty much fully. And in all the basically repetition of Russian propaganda, and them being like the acolytes of Russia essentially now, and them pressuring us, blackmailing us into capitulation on Russian terms, and all of that has been difficult, morally, like emotionally, for people to deal with.
So
But
you would say
yeah,
that the support of Western allies is not just important in terms of arms on the front, but it's also in terms of the psychology of Ukrainians knowing that they're being supported.
definitely, yeah,
And
of course, yeah. One of the most actually debilitating things was that, like when Trump won, I was like absolutely in shambles because I like basically, if you can find me talking with the, I think Destiny I spoke and Lonerbox I think as well about that when it just happened. I basically like not to brag, but like predicted everything that's went down from that point on. So my understanding of what will follow his victory was correct. Pretty much 99% of it. So I was like very, very, very upset because I obviously knew how much more difficult things are gonna be and how we will have to adapt now to not have an aid from America because they're not gonna give us to it anymore. They will pressure us to capitulate, and they will basically pressure us with it. That without our help, you will not be able to do it anyway. You don't have any cards, quote unquote, right? So you either do what we want or what can you do? What can you do, right? You have no cards. And yeah, I was worried, of course. I was worried that that pressure will buckle our spine, quote unquote, right? I was worried that our administration would not be able to deal with it, like our government, like I mean Zelensky and all the other people, right? And I was worried when he went there to this accursed Oval Office meeting now. But I was worried because I was thinking, dear shit, if he like, you know, sells us out or he like buckles under pressure or he agrees to the absolutely idiotic conditions that will only lead to the destruction of my country and my nation, right? I was, yeah, yeah, of course, it's morally difficult, not just in terms of like material help and weapons and stuff like that, but it's also, you don't want to be that like one guy against a massive force, you know? But
I
if you
mean, I
have
think,
to, I guess.
yeah, I mean, I hear this in Germany, sadly, especially on the left. Maybe it's just more circles that I mix with, where they want to support Ukraine. They say they want to support Ukraine, but they don't understand that supporting Ukraine means military support for Ukrainian
Hmm.
survival. And they often, sadly, don't seem to understand that Ukraine is fighting for Europe's future, not just Ukraine's future. So, I mean, this is my final question. What would you say to somebody that is skeptical about supporting Ukraine militarily? They like Ukraine. They understand that it was an invasion, but they're skeptical about giving arms to Ukraine. How would you convince them?
I would say be self-interested. You know, that's easy. Being self-sacrificial and worrying about people somewhere in the weird country of Ukraine is, you know, it's quite a task. I'm not putting this on everyone, okay? Some people are, you know, good, virtuous, and you know, noble enough to care. Obviously, like a lot of people help us, but just think about yourself. Like you now live in the West, right? In one of the most perilous times in 21st century, right? We have absolutely unhinged agent now in the United States, who is chaotic, unpredictable. You have like Biden, then oh sorry, you have Obama, then you have Trump. Then you have Biden, then you have Trump. The like the Sweden in terms of like the attitude towards Europe. You have been threatened in all sorts of ways just by the United States president, who's supposed to be like the biggest ally and the hegemon and you know all of that stuff to Europe, right? You now have Iran actively showing how they you know have cards to play themselves as well with terms of like Shahid attacks and things like that. You have China in Taiwan situation, where now Trump went there and like, yeah, attack Taiwan, thumbs up, green light. You know, so you have this going on. It's not just about Ukraine at the end of the day. You have that people, for example, in Baltics understand that very well. That's why they support us. So I never heard from a single Estonian, okay, or like Latvian or Lithuanian person that I don't want my coffee to be more expensive. Screw them, Ukrainians. You know, no, they're like, yes, our taxpayer dollars are going exactly where we need it to, like you know, to defeat Russia, right? And you have people like that. Poland, you know, also is supportive, of course, in that regard. And because people are they're more afraid, obviously, than other parts of the European Union, right? But also at the end of the day, they're a part of NATO. They're a part of European Union, unlike us, right? And if any escalation happens there, what will happen, you know, in the world? And at the end of the day, Westerners live now in a very, very good position to invest in us, so they never have to deal with this shit ever. They don't have to live like we live. They don't have to hide when the air raid's going on, right? They don't have to have their loved ones killed. They don't have to send their, sons, brothers, husbands, wives, whatever, daughters, right, to go serve at the front. They don't have to live in conscription. They don't have to live in curfews and all sorts of things. And to do that, all you need to do really is to invest in your meat shield. So when you have people who are willing to be a meat shield, the silliest thing you can do is not to invest in that, especially when you look at the polls that, not Polish people, but polls that are like, are you willing to defend your country? My God, have you seen those? It's like in the West, it's like barely 11%, 12%, 7%. And then you have like Ukraine, Baltics, Poles, Finns, 80%. So invest in us, right? In Eastern Europe. I will say that to the Western people. Historically, you have been throwing us under the bus too many times to count, don't have enough fingers to count, and maybe you want to do that again, and I understand, it's a practiced motion. You're used to that one, but like maybe in the 21st century we can be a little bit more smart, and we can invest in Eastern Europe and in Ukraine right now in particular, but also in like Poland, Baltic countries, that they are willing to actually defend you in the case that this absolute evil bullshit ever gets more than it is now. And yeah, that would be my appeal. Just be smart about it. And if it like margin, of course it can affect your life, like financially and stuff like that, I understand. And but just think what is sort of like gonna be hitting you more financially.
Exactly.
Getting blown up, yeah, or getting your coffee a bit pricier, or like your gas a bit pricier. And unfortunate times, no question, like I would love none of us to have to deal with any price spikes and any Trumps and Putins and people of that variety, right, doing idiotic shit. But at the end of the day, like we are in it. It's a situation we're all in, and you can like hide, and you can like close your eyes and be like this monkey emoji, like, don't hear, don't see. But it's not gonna last forever. So yeah, just invest. And it's much better to live in peace as you do now, with maybe sort of like less privileges and less wealth, maybe in some sense, than you used to have, for sure, right? But it's way better than, believe me, than whatever this is going on right now. So
Exactly. I mean,
yeah.
the numbers are super clear on this. If we properly supported Ukraine now, we're not looking at more than 1% of GDP would be more than enough, right? Which
Yeah.
doesn't. We've gone through much worse things than that. I mean, the pandemic's on a far different economic scale than supporting Ukraine. But if we end up in a war in Europe, then that's a loss of a trading partner for the US, for example. And the US doesn't have many trading partners where the US is the major trading partner anymore. But Western Europe is one of the big strongholds for the US. It will cost a lot more than the odd cup of coffee that would have to be forgone.
I will also
I will
also say, to be honest, like I wouldn't say this like years ago. I would found what I'm about to say silly years ago. But now, as we are, I'm not even sure you'd be that good at it. Like, no offense, like at war, I mean, because like drones, nothing. Like we beat your ass every time in like NATO training.
That was this month. This month there was training, right?
Yeah.
In this Swedish
Yeah,
island.
like you don't know much, it seems, about like how modern war works. And if Iran, China, Russia, whoever of these guys, right, attacks, they're not gonna do it with anything but drones. This is a training field, right? It's a training field when this new era of war is developed. And we are sort of like the frontier, but we're also the testing ground, basically, right? And you don't know that. You don't seem to, for some unknown reason, want to invest in it, or like actually, like I have no clue, honestly, like why people are not all over this, like getting knowledge from us, getting training from us, because like we are the only people aside from Russians now who are engaging in a full-scale drone warfare, like from two big sort of like armies, right? And That's one thing, right? It's not going to be just small terrorist attacks. It's going to be warfare. It's going to look like that. You're not putting this cat in the bag. It's not getting anywhere. It's going to develop. It's going to get more dystopian, more weird, but it's going to be this, right? So that's one thing. Second thing, you have us, experienced army. We have about 1 million people in the army right now, which is a huge number, right? And we also have the will to fight, in not just us, like I'm said, it's also like the Baltics, Polish, Finland, Finnish lads, and all that, right? And you have what to call this without being mean? You have people are like, I don't care, like I can live in another place. What did my country do to me? Like I'm not patriotic. I'm not a nationalist. I don't want to fight for my country. And you're like, you know, you know, we have I'm not like shitting. We have like 500,000 people who volunteered to go to the army. I am not seeing this in Spain or like Italy. No offense to my Italians, beautiful, lovely people, but not to kins to fight, as it seems, for the glorious of Italian, for the glory of Italy. Okay? It's just I'm not saying you should. I understand 21st century, nobody wanted this shit. Like everyone thought the wars are over. But they thought the same thing after World War One. You know, they felt the exact same thing. They were like, that's done. No more wars. Buy wars. No, you know. So it's not gonna be the same. Don't think it never concerns you or it will never touch you because it's exactly the same thing that people used to think, and they were wrong, and you're wrong as well. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can be patriotic without being nationalistic, and
I mean, I think so too, but I also don't demonize nationalism like as a term, as you know. We already spoke about this with you, so I think nationalism keeps us okay. Nationalism keeps us going. Yeah.
I mean, it's a form of patriotism. I mean, it's just a case of how a word is used in a different language, but
yeah,
I mean, it's incredibly selfish not willing to fight for a country that you want to live in. And I know this feeling. I'm scared of fighting. I've thought about this.
Understandable. It's pretty fucking horrible. So
I don't know what I would actually do, but if I was conscripted in a country where I wanted to live, I mean, what am I meant to say? I should fight for it. That's why conscription also is an important part of this. But
yeah. I will say though, I don't want to come off as that I'm like I am like looking down on people, like judging people. War is absolutely atrocious. It's like the worst thing I ever I don't even know like what can be possibly be worse. Not any natural disaster can be worse. Nothing can be worse. And not being afraid is normal. Is healthy. It should be afraid. But here's the thing: be afraid, but you're not afraid enough. Is what I'm saying. You should be afraid enough to want to avoid it at all costs possible. And the cost now is smaller than it will be, and the cost gets pricier every year, So it's just that, it's just the fear should motivate, and the fear is normal. The fear is sensible, but just be afraid enough to try your absolute best to prevent this from ever reaching you. So yeah, that's kind of like where it's at.
Yeah, the best thing to do is to support Ukraine to protect Europe and then protect the US. So
yeah, and other people as well. Like I remember back in the day, people used to discuss, there was like this Russian narrative. It still exists, obviously, about like the decay of the West, Western degeneracy, blah, 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 the fall of the West, blah, 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 all that. And like, I always ignored that and, always thought that was ridiculous and silly. And it is, their version of this story is all about them LGBT, that's how they see the fall, right? Yeah, you have Dugan being like the nation of transgenders and like, my God, relax from those drugs. It's silly. The way they paint it is silly. But in a broader sense, there is a little bit of a decay, I must say, because of how sort of like unwillingness of people to, first of all, stand tall against threats like that, right? But also, there's just lack of love for their country. I was shocked when I started interacting with Westerners, and where's the love? Like, there's a lot of complaints, there's a lot of hate, There's a lot of like this shit sucks, this bad, this people like, and you listen to like leftists, they all hate the place. You listen to rightists, they all hate the place. You don't even have like nationalists that actually love your country. They also are haters, okay? And it's just like, where is love? Where is like the care, the appreciation, the warmth you feel when you speak about your culture, your people, your traditions, what's good about them, what's bad about them? You know, there's just such a weird attitude towards. It's just people are so. It took me a while to understand this, but people are so used to their lives and so used to the privilege that they have that they just simply like liberalism, democracy, human rights, whatever, all the good stuff. Okay, people like in Georgia march daily, for example, in the country, right, of Georgia, and
Yeah, I did.
the United, yeah, they march like daily, right, for those things. Like they fight against the government. You have like people in Ukraine who had like Maidan revolution, right, to fight for the things you already have. You're just born to have, right, and it's probably why people are dying like holding, I don't know, that this famous picture of a woman from Bucha who was killed, and she has this like red nails, like manicured hand, and she's squeezing the keys in there from her apartment, and it has the Ukraine symbol and the European Union, like the blue with the red with the stars, right? And you have this like bloodied head of a person holding this like European Union little thingy, right? And I, as a silly little goose that I was during, you know, when I was younger, I had like ribbons of all the European Union stuff on me. Like I would walk around with the European Union, you know, ribbons and like little stickers and all sorts of shit. And people so want that pins that you have, and they're so enthusiastic about it, and they're so enthusiastic, in fact, that they're willing to die for it. And then you speak to the people who live in the place, and it's like an endless train of complaints. You know, it's the worst shithole ever, and that's just it's warped reality. It's warped. You know, it's not in anywhere near as bad.
We've been spoiled by history,
Yeah,
of
it's
so
just
many
the
decades of peace. People, this is something I think must come into political narratives in the West. Uh, when fighting these far right populists is talking about what's already good and what we need to build on, not what we've not
yeah,
got.
like
It's insane because we're mostly it's such great countries. Even like in the UK, right? People complain about stabbings and stuff in London. You probably have heard these memes. The crime rate's super low. The 1990s were a terrible time. Pollution levels like 50% of the particulate pollution. It's so much cleaner now. It's more peaceful there. There's less noise. The air's cleaner. The ground is cleaner. It's a much nicer city. That's the reality of going there and knowing it from when you're younger. But the reality
But if you listen to people, they're like talking about the apocalyptic hellhole, and you're like, my God, you haven't. Let's go to Bahamut, guys. Let me show you an apocalyptic hellhole. Like it's just it's to be honest, it's really aggravating. Like as a person from Ukraine, it's like really aggravating to deal with. And I'm not saying that the people absolutely have no valid complaints or like valid problems. Obviously, they do have it, but it's just that it's so artificial. It's so generated specifically to divide and conquer, specifically to sow division, specifically to create this feeling of like desperation in the most privileged and wealthiest people in the world. And that's so annoying. Like you
I will
find
put
some
my hands up, and
yeah,
I will
yeah.
say that I've been guilty of, I think, to some extent, of being taken in by some of this narrative. I mean, it's mixed, right? There are these horrible wars that the West have been involved in, like in Iraq. And one of the frustrating things in hindsight with that now is like, yeah, that was a bit stupid. But now one of the reasons I think Ukraine isn't as supported, say, in the UK, is because they're used to the government saying, hey, support this country. Because Starmer's pretty vocal about it. And to be fair, a lot of the Tory leaders were vocal about it. But, say leaders because we had so many prime ministers. But the people were like, just another war. And they don't see the difference this time. So, I mean, there is an issue, with the West's history. But I think you also have to calibrate what the West has done with just simply how powerful it's been. And especially the USA, it's been the dominant power for so long. And for all the bad things and the good things it's done relative to its power, it's a pretty good country. right? It's not
Yeah,
perfect, but it
yeah,
is pretty good.
that's my point. Yeah, I don't want, obviously, the last thing I would want is for the Western people to be like Russians, okay, and saying that
Mm.
everything they do is glorious and they are like shitting butterflies, and every country they occupied or invaded
I
has
mean,
been saved and liberated. Yeah,
imagine Russia with the economy of the US. God help this planet.
no, thank you.
That's what I mean.
let's not
Like,
let's not imagine that. Yeah, no.
yeah, but that's the whole point.
Yeah,
Like, they,
we're cooked then.
yeah,
Totally.
exactly.
Yeah.
And the US have been a lot better than if you kind of transplanted the brain of Russia into the US.
Yeah, like I mean, as far as like hegemonies go, I mean, right now I'm not so sure, to be honest, but like it had a, obviously, like, and yeah, and I think it's a very good thing to speak about like Iraq, for example, right? How the, or like even like Afghanistan, like Russians, so Russians, not Russians, Russians don't give a shit, but like Americans, that they like that they talk about it in a negative way, right? And that they view the things that they did in the past through a lens that is like, much more objective than an average Russian. If you ask them what they did to Crimean Tatars, they will say, it's not the attitude like that people have in the primarily in the West, right? Even like the whole native Americans thing, and like rarely you will find a person who these days who will be like, hell yeah, it's just there have been a very good like things to like deal with the things that have been done in the past, like, and it's good. You don't want a country that is like this ultra like supremacist nationalist idea that their superiority and stuff like that, but you also don't want it to be absolute sea of negativity. You don't want it to be like there's nothing good, everything's shit, we've done nothing right, nothing is good, nothing is, and you have like the most strange thing that most of my Ukrainian friends, which may probably be funny for you, the one thing that they really don't understand is when you open up the right, quote unquote, like righties, nationalists, right wingers, and they also endlessly complain. Like when people here expect nationalists to be like, oh, you go like UK, the best country ever, or like go United States, the best country ever. You know the drill, right? Like that's kind of like the rah-rah nationalism, right? That you expect. No, they're also all bitching and complaining about how shit it is, how everything is degenerate, how everything is like horrible, women, foreigners, like migrants. It's just endless
But
whining. And you,
I have to say, we have to be a little bit careful at this point because I come from a region of the UK which is famous for complaining, and I had a friend from the same region, and we were living in a different part of the UK, and we sat with each other for one evening complaining about how they would complain. So we should also be careful about complaining too much about the people
I
complaining.
agree. But it's just that
Because they're
it's
good
just that the
people too, and
general
it's a
thing,
big
right?
thing. Yeah.
There's just a general thing. It's just that the vibes are off. Okay, vibes are rotten. So it's just it's just to me it's always funny when you ask like some person with like I don't know being bandaged from the head wound or from shrapnel, living in a city with no water, no electricity, nothing, right? And you ask them about and he's like Ukraine, Slava Ukraini, and he's like that. And then you ask like a guy in the United States, and he's like, I wasn't able to buy a house at the age of 24. This country has gone to shit. And you're like, you know, doing this because it's just such a I don't know. Like you all need to find this. I nearly said Jesus, which is funny as an atheist, but you all need to find some love in your hearts. Okay, you need to find the love for your people, for your country. You need to find this healthy sort of like, guys, we have so many good things to fight for, let's fight for them. You need to have this like sort of boosting positive message about how based things that you have are, like liberalism, human rights, democracy, how privileged, how wealthy you are, how incredible the life is compared to what it was like even a century ago, right, in the same exact places. And it's just that it just needs to be this, like, there's nothing that you can't motivate people with this, and that's how they want you. Okay, that's how the far rightists want you. That's how far leftists want you. They want you to be constantly at the odds, constantly feeling that like, everything is shit and there's no point in anything, right? That's actually how you become Russian. Because they're that at the end of the day. Like the most prominent thing about them isn't even Well, of course it is. Okay, it is being drunk and an alcoholic, but it also is being apathetic, being nihilistic, not believing in anything besides basically surviving as an individual, right? So like this, like человеку волк. This is like a man to a man is a wolf, right? That's the mentality. So you only care about this like little space that you occupy and your closest like family members maybe occupy, right?
Mm.
And that's how you become what they become. So yeah, it's just yeah, find it funny. I find this more worrisome, okay, than I find the possibility of being nuked and anything else.
I mean, it's a
Because yeah,
competitor to the horrible outcomes. I mean, it is true. I think
Mhm.
one of the biggest enemies to Western nations is actually within, and it's within in terms of this character of not appreciating things, because we'll lose these things if we don't think of these things to keep and maintain and cherish. That being democracy and liberalism, the ability to have these kind of conversations that we even have now.
Mhm.
Then they will go because no one will fight for something they don't even believe in anymore. And
Yeah, that's
you
why
can see
maybe they
it
don't want to.
beginning this, and
Mhm.
so I think we've really got to fight for cherishing what we already have, and it's a positive political message because it's about maintaining something, not having to create something new necessarily on top of on top of it, rather than blowing everything up and then starting again, which is of course what the far left want. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I think it is, but it's just like I'm not saying it's like the end times and it's an irreversible process and like anything doomer like that. I wouldn't say so. Even in the United States, I'm more actually optimistic than my American friends who are exceptionally distraught by Trump's second term, obviously, right? And people voted for him and stuff. But I'm like, I don't think even that is irreversible. I don't think that there's like a no way to sort of like steer the wheel to the different direction. But like it does, it is at the point of being very worrisome. Let's put it that way. So it's about time to sort of like I don't know understand how to deal with this. Also, Americans, in my opinion, especially, but not just Americans, Westerners in
mhm,
general, are very unprepared for the onslaught of sort of like malicious propaganda that
mhm,
is being, for example, foreign created by foreigners like Russia, for example. It came to me like quite clear that a lot of people just don't even understand just how massive that machine is,
mhm,
how many things it sponsors, how much messaging it dishes out, how much division it causes to people. Sometimes people like I see people like genuine people like normal people like in the United States, and their feed is like 90% Russian propaganda in English,
mhm,
and it's like, oh, and
mhm,
like most people don't know, like they don't know that they're consuming things like that even, and that forms their mind, and
mhm.
that they how they see the world is dictated by people who hate them and want them to collapse. And it's just yeah, it's malicious propaganda. It's not just
Mhm.
any type of propaganda. It's a propaganda that is specifically designed to destroy the hegemony of the United States in the world. It's specifically designed to undermine European Union as an entity, right, in the
Mhm.
West. And they're open about it. They're not hiding it. Like look at the I don't know.
And it's not just on the right;
This,
it's on the left as well. I am
yeah,
suspicious of
that's
the
why they
Green Party
sponsor
in the
both.
UK, for example. Like they,
That's why they sponsor both, because
yeah,
you see them like, do you remember that like stupid accident, when not accident actually, but incident, I guess, when they sponsored BLM guys and then they sponsored the far right, like how they were called, some stupid like far right name in in America,
the Proud Boys,
some
no,
voice or something.
Proud
Oh
Boys,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
stupid ass name. Anyway, that was like they sponsored like both groups at the same time and like duke
Mhm.
it out, and it's like very left and very right, and you're like, what the hell? Like, why would you do that?
Your connection's gone.
Then
Uh,
is
oh,
to
you're coming back.
yeah. Oh, waving my head's too much. Happens. Um, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. You're very animated and then suddenly stopped it.
Because I was moving my head too much.
Okay.
That's what people always tell me. But anyway, I'm putting them down. Okay, but it's just that the it's just that the basically is that what I'm saying is that they don't really have like they yes you 100% they support far right quite a bit more, because also
Mm.
right wing is more powerful in politically than left wingers, to be honest. That's why. But they don't really have like the even like the political agenda as much as they have the only agenda to sow division, right?
Mm.
And you do that by basically this. You can sponsor very far left people who have like stupid allegiances and nostalgias towards like Soviet Union that they never stepped foot in, and then they have this like far right people who they can amplify the anti-migrant stuff, anti-LGBT stuff, like things that, you know, trans stuff has been recently been very wildly used by them to amplify this negativity and this like sort of sense of it's the end times, you know. And you even have like people like Dugin and Putin and ironically talking about that shit now. Like they'd be like they're transing kids in the bushes, and you're like, you know, like anyone sensible obviously looks at it and they're like, bro, like who cares? Like it's like how many people are there? Like why are we talking about this? But it's like, yeah, it's a powerful propaganda tool, and you know, that's
And it's
kind
only
of
going
like
to
many
get
people don't
stronger as
realize
well.
that.
I mean, that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
It's going to get worse, and the younger people again getting influenced by this, making it harder for them to see as they get older to say they've been taken in by these things. I think any politics that's making things very black and white has a very clear and concise enemy, and that's it. I mean, the only exception I find at the moment is in the Ukraine-Russian conflict is quite black and white, but within domestic politics in the West, there should be no black and white narrative.
Mm.
And
Well,
yeah,
yeah. There's a lot of things that are like get randomly, not randomly actually, are very purposefully amplified, right? They have this like, I remember I saw so many Russian, it was way back when the Brexit thing was going on, and I saw, was like, I was at the time in Russian media as well, not just like, you know, Ukrainian stuff. And I was remember reading like a bunch of things like in the Russian social media stuff, like Kontakte and shit like that, that is like, you know, basically Russian, right? And there was so many messages about the Pakistani gang rape gangs and like amplifying like the messages that and it was, and I was like, why, like why are we caring about Pakistani rape gangs in like, you know, in and now of course I'm much wiser and I know how it works, and now of course I understand that the idea was to create this feeling, right, that it's like such a huge like massive issue, and that every single Pakistani is not a, I don't know, taxi driver, but a gang rapist
well, most of
guy,
a
right?
lot of a lot of
Yeah,
them are doctors actually. Like our NHS in the
yeah,
UK,
yeah.
huge percentage
Doctors, you know,
are
like
doctors.
a bunch of Indians are always doctors, apparently. You know, tech
And
people, the other
dentists
stuff, right?
and other really important professions. But the thing is, in the UK, it's I
Yeah,
think like 1.5 million
engineers, whatever.
British Pakistanis. So they're choosing a community that's very much part of the fabric of Britain. So I mean, I was actually born
Mm-hmm.
in a city or town in the north of the country that's got a huge British Pakistani population, and there were I think about 20 years ago already some major riots there. So there were tensions between different communities. So it's
Yeah.
sensitive, and I don't even necessarily think it's all Russian interference that creates that. But they find these things where there's a
No, not all,
fragility.
but they put
Uh,
the megaphones. Yeah, they found
exactly. Yeah.
basically like they find the points that are bleeding already.
Mm-hmm.
So they find the points that are already within the country itself organically, right? They
Mm-hmm.
cause problems, and they call division, and they call negative. So, for example, like with the trans stuff, they didn't speak about that at all. Russia, they didn't care. But then they were like, oh, look at them fighting over that shit, you know, bathrooms and all other stupid stuff, like about the, you know, the stuff. And they were like, oh, let's put a megaphone into this and amplify this as much as we can. So that's kind of how it works. It's not that there are not no genuine, you know, troubles or genuine disagreements between people. It's just that their job is to basically multiply them by the 100 in terms of like how big they seem.
I did have a question
Yeah,
in
same
chat, by
with
the
like
way.
Pakistani stuff.
I feel like, well, I had Flavio Ukraina in chat,
Yay,
and
Geroim
also
Slava.
and I also had a question: if Ukraine ever got Iron Dome technology from Israel, would it actually help in the battlefield?
No,
Um,
no. It's not possible, first of all,
mm,
because like Iron Dome only works because it's a very small country
mm,
in Israel, first of all. Like Ukraine is huge. Like by European standards, it's a big country, and the front line is humongous. Like actually, people don't even understand just how big it is, right? So it's not really possible material, no, you know, in terms of like material costs of it. And second of all, Iron Dome is sort of like built to it's not built to take ballistic missiles out, okay? So they're not really as much as like Israel likes to speak about how they on the verge of death every 5 seconds. But like at the end of the day, they're rarely lobbed with like ballistic missiles or like Shahed drones and things like that. It's just it's when it's like crude stuff that like some guy made in a garage, like it can take that down for sure. Yeah, it's effective as that, but it wasn't really built with like taking on actual like proper army of a proper country, modern weaponry. So yeah, it's just it's not really something that can work that well, both because of the size of the country, because Israel is a teeny tiny, small, and because of the of just what is actually thrown at them, which is a completely different thing altogether, really.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the chat. I mean, we were meant to talk about drone technology, but I think there's just so much more also to the understanding the existence of life, what life is like in Ukraine. I just think that needs to be repeated, and um, uh, even though we kind of start to touch an understanding, it's still I can't empathize with what it must be like.
Mm.
Um,
I
and
mean, I appreciate you actually saying that, because I'm not very fond of people being like, I mean, you wouldn't do that. You're not really American or like Canadian. But it's them who do that, and I mean, they do it with good intentions. Okay,
mm,
so it's not that they're like doing it with bad intentions, but it's like, oh my god, all of that. And they're like, "Oh my god, I can't even imagine." And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, I know you can't imagine." It's just like, it's very, in my opinion, very nice to say like I can't really fully like empathize with this or like understand, and yeah, it's just it's good, by the way, that most people can't empathize or understand, because like I wouldn't want people to, as much as I shit on like people saying in the sense that you should be afraid and stuff, and I think you should be,
mm.
but I know I'm not wishing anyone this, okay?
And that's why
So
we all
it's
need to
just
support
that
Ukraine. I mean, it all comes back to supporting Ukraine.
yeah.
If we want
So
peace.
yeah, I'm
So,
like really, really sort of terrified of the idea of the other people going to this shitter. For example, Taiwan is something I quite worry about. And yeah, there's a yeah, just the world has gone to all sorts of directions recently. Okay,
mhm.
so yeah.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, thank you. I'm also need to have something to eat, and
Yeah, and the
yeah.
rabbit is so mad.
Oh, okay. Well,
I was supposed to like walk her already like half an hour ago, so I'm gonna go because I don't want to be, stumped to death, basically. So,
oh, I'm sure she
um,
wouldn't do that, but yeah.
she's kind of mean when she wants to be. So yeah, it's just she can bite actually pretty terribly. She doesn't do that much, but sometimes she gets mad and she will pull at your clothing,
Mhm.
basically. But by mistake nick you sometimes, because like she can't tell like where the skin of the like the clothing is, and those are chompers over there, like, she can jump. Yeah, so I'm
I
afraid.
had rabbits as a child, and chinchillas. They were quite similar in this regards.
Oh, chinchillas are so cool. I like them as well. Yeah,
I preferred
but I
rabbits.
never.
The personalities of
Yeah,
rabbits were a little bit more empathic with human
yeah.
beings. So
Rabbits are more like sort of like social than
exactly, yeah.
chinchillas
Well, the
are. Yeah, yeah.
rats were my favorite pets as a child.
Rats are the best. They're super smart and cool. Yeah, and yeah, they're very cool, and they're awesome, awesome pets. So people that just don't like them how they look, I guess that's why
Mm.
they're not like particularly popular. But yeah, rabbits are very cool as well. I had like three now, four. Sorry, four, and in my life, right? So and they've all been very cool. So yeah,
Cool. Well, enjoy your walk, and yeah,
yeah.
we'll speak again soon, hopefully. And if you
It's more like
especially,
sitting on the couch, to be honest, with the rabbit rather than walking.
oh
But
yeah.
it's just yeah. I'm not gonna like say we're going on a runs, with her or
Oh,
anything. Yeah.
you could get little leads for. I mean, for my rat, I had a little lead so I could take it outside for walks.
Yeah, but
Uh,
she's like super fond of like she's like super like sort of cautious, and she's not the bravest of the rabbits. Let's put it that way. She also is my first girl rabbit. I only had duders as before, and she's like so more sensible. I must tell you. She's like cautious. She's very careful. She like, it's just so funny. It's like that exact situation when you have the guys being killed by lightning. I saw that article when there was like, is lightning sexist? And I was like, what the shit? So I opened it up, and it turns out that the most who killed a man, because like a woman are sensible and they go like, hide and go back inside the houses. And the same with drones, which we didn't speak about, but like all the drone footage you see, it's dudes. Like you don't see like women filming shit. Dudes be going on the balconies and like whoa, and film like, and then you hear like a wife or a girlfriend or whatever, and they just like go inside, you idiot. So it's just rabbits are the same apparently.
Well, yeah, it's,
So
males across the animal kingdom. Yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna die a stupid death, but it's gonna be a cool ass video. So
Oh,
yeah.
and just before you go,
Yeah.
do you have any fundraisers coming up?
Just finished the one for the car for the 43rd Brigade, and I will probably start another one for Phoenix guys from Kharkiv. Probably in a couple of days, like 3-4 days. I think I need to call them and like ask them what they need, and need to figure out some stuff. But yeah, so it's probably gonna happen in a couple of days. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, and so we'll chat again at some point, especially for your fundraising. And if I also hope to fundraise in conjunction with you this year, and at least create some
Yeah,
awareness.
that would
And
be cool.
yeah, especially if cycling to Ukraine. Cool.
I mean, honestly, though, like I will say, GGG like comes through very well in terms of like helping me with my fundraisers. I don't think I had a single one that didn't close. So I'm pretty fortunate that way, that they helped me, and very very grateful for that.
It's a great community
Um,
and underappreciated,
mm,
I think. Yeah.
yeah. Well, bye bye. Thank you for having me on.
Take
Yeah,
care.
let's
Yeah.
chat sometime.
Yeah. Lots of love.
Yeah, bye bye.
Bye. Cool. So I hope anyone that's still watching enjoyed that. I think the lesson is basically we should support Ukraine even on a from a selfish perspective. If we want to maintain our peace, if we don't want to have to decide to fight for our countries, it seems pretty clear cut that supporting Ukraine would be the easy way to do that. Yeah, hope you have a great evening, afternoon, midday, whatever time it is where you are.